or raise your hand if you attended any part of day one. Okay, great. So I see a lot of names who had come from day one, so that's great. And I see a few people who are not raising hands, so maybe they're just joining. You're welcome anyway. For today, we'll be reflecting on day one section quickly, and we'll have one of our colleagues do that. And then we'll have 3 sections today, one on gender-based violence, the second on women's economic empowerment, and then we'll have section 3 on women's economic, the first on a panel discussion, and the second session on abstract presentations. And then we'll be sharing how you can get involved with the work the Learning Collaborative is doing. There's so much going on, and I will be sharing that across the day as we go. And then we'll have a closing. So just to touch on the Nigerian Social Norms Learning Collaborative, what its key focuses are. This is a community of practice that consists of government officials, partners, and stakeholders who are involved in social norms programming and research in Nigeria. And the overall objective of these individuals in this learning collaborative is, one, to document and share experiences, to strengthen capacity in the programs we're implementing, to improve practice through partnership, and to create a social norms resource and a product resource platform where we can share and learn across. So far, we've had a number of working groups meeting, and some products have been developed. And of course, there have been some opportunities for mentorships and capacity building. There's a lot of work going on locally in Nigeria, and also there's a lot of work done by other global learning collaborative in the East and in Asia and globally as a whole. We all connect through the work we do on social norms, and we hope that we can have most of you in there if you're not already in there. For those who are interested in learning more about the work, you could sign up with the link available in the chat. This is the website there, and you can sign up for our mailing list, and you have access to a number of resources from Nigeria and also across the world on social norms. So without taking much time, I'd like to once again thank those who have put this conference together. And here you see the names of everyone there. It's taken, like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a lot of people behind to make such a great conference. So thank you for everyone who's been working behind the scene. We've already set up ground rules yesterday. Please, everyone is on mute. If you have a question, use the chat box. If you want to ask a question in the Q&A, you can raise your hand. And let's just ensure we keep the time for those who are presenting. If you have to step out, today we will not have any break and we'll just be moving through. So if you have to step out, any of the presenters, please keep an eye on the time and make sure you're back for your presentation. So without wasting much time, let's go straight into it. The first session will be moderated by Mr. Emmanuel Musa. Mr. Emmanuel Musa is an independent consultant in Kaduna, and he's also a member of the community of practice of the Learning Collaborative. So Mr. Emmanuel, over to you.
Hello, am I audible enough? Ikia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud.
Oh, okay, all right. Colleagues and fellow participants, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, whatever the time is. I am Emmanuel Musa. Just like what Michael had already said, I'm an independent consultant here in Kaduna. And my work has been done easy by Michael, who has happened to be a friend, and we've been collaboration together for a few of those calls together. He has actually tried to make my work look more easier. And I want to appreciate Michael, Hasbiela, Marilyn, Meredith, Betsy, and all others who in one way or the other, we've met and we've tried to make sure that this meeting has been a success. Now, without further more ado, yesterday, just like what he said, we've had so many, the stage was opening by Fatima Abubakar Al-Ali, who spoke on organization, and a readiness to partner with Nigerian Social Collaborative. And then the House was informed of 4 key priorities of the BNGF, that is to empower the poorest, to empower by combating disease to the poorest, and inspire again the poorest to take action. So the BMGF through Fatima Abubakar Ali, who actually spoke so well on those key topics. And then the Commissioner of Health, who was presented by Dr. Hajara Kira, spoke on the state readiness to play a fair playing ground and the learning collaborative here in Kaduna State, and where she spoke on the strive by exemplifying to leading and ranking the 35% female affirmative action for Kaduna State. And then Kaduna State have been ranked among one of the few states in Nigeria which has more on accommodating and then doing more on social norms and other activities. So, and we've had another interesting discussion by Dr. Beatrice Eleka, who has presentation on women empowerment and trying a discussion on where she brought a lot of issues to do with the Beijing conference, and then the Beijing conference on the inclusion of women, trying to discuss so many issues on even the, then the National Affirmative Action, and then where she had actually retreated on 7 states having almost over 35% score, which is actually not too good on that kind of the ranking and then the score. So we should be able to have more states. We should be able to have that over 35%. Let's have more states with 35% score in the female affirmative action. And then she's equally added her voice on to build capacity of women, and then more sensitization to religious and traditional leaders, where they actually have to have a very important role on the norms and then the women and gender issues, and then in her life, and then need to improve the life of a woman. And just like what the popular saying is that when the more you improve the life of a woman, that is, you are getting more equal in improving the betterment of the society. So just try and educate a woman and she educates the whole nation. So, and by and large, we had equally Rehiana Ibrahim, who took session on introducing Erika Snyder, who spoke on measurement of norms. And that's yesterday. In fact, for me, yesterday, I came in to know about the genome and then the social norm, which is very key. We've had a lot of interesting discussions yesterday. And then she equally spoke on her research work with Uganda. And then Nigeria will be the next on her research work. And she spoke so much on the issue of the genome and then the social norm, where those key questions were asked. And then we had another discussion by Chidera Odeni on the topic of knowledge, attitude, and practice towards hospital delivery among women in reproductive age, a case study of Paiko Kore in Gwagwalada Area Council of Abuja. And then Dr. Liman from the CAF Institute equally spoke on the responsive feedback and how to improve social norm, where introduce, and the way you have speakers like Bolaji, Oladejo, and Yeka Ewa and others who all centered on insight into social norms measures, and also use the responsive feedback and social norms. So as you know, the social the responsive feedback is actually, it's not, I wouldn't say it's new, but then it's something that we need to look at. You know, you have social, you know, we're trying to align between the social norms and then with the responsive feedback. You find out that in all aspects, in all activities, they interflow. And this thing has a lot of connectivity between responsive feedback and then with the social norm. So yes, there's the social norm. Now, how do you now bring a feedback to build to a kind of a responsiveness? So this is really spoke key issues on how to align, you know, those missing dots between the responsive feedback and then the norms, the social norms. You know, you're looking at it in such a way. Now, we've had another key is like by Luke Martins, who from MFP, which means Masculinity, Faith, and Peace. And I've had one of the wonderful sessions looking at, you know, this presentation was timely and it is key. And I want to commend the presenter of this program for bringing in Andrew, and Luca Martins from Tiafon, who brought in an excellent presentation where timely intervention of this with this present dispensation. Andrew spoke on community dialogue, structure session, then other speakers like Nwoke and then David. Now, why I brought the issue of Andrew, you know, you could see we're having a lot of issues of security, probably not probably in the north, And then you look at Kaduna, you look at even Abuja itself, and then with Niger State, we have so many issues of security. So how do you now dialogue and then have a kind of a structure with those kind of norms we're having in our society? Very good and a wonderful session by him, and then with Jane Nwoke and David Opoheme. They all spoke on those issues. Now we've had models used for transforming masculinities, which was equally discussed. Then, and how do you educate by provoking others? You know, just like what we are saying, yes, you need to provoke someone educationally to see him performing well. And this should be another norm that we should be able to have. You know, the norms could be in all facets of life. It could be the norms on health, norms on religion, on faith, you know, you have so many. Responsive about Japan, the relationship between faith and then the social norms, trying to align this and spoke it. You know, you could see speakers bringing in the same few issues and then for others to call it discuss. That means it's actually something to look at. You know, you've added a voice, one has spoken, and then you're adding another voice into such presentation, which is very key to it. And I really appreciate hearing examples of social norm change that happened through dialogue and about how the program was equally evaluated. You know, I love like what I spoke about evaluation through responsive feedback, and then you do it even with the social norm. Yes, we could have a program on social norm, but how do you make those evaluation? How does it look visible? How do you look at it? How do you now give on real-time reporting on other social norms? You know, these are the things that the responsive feedback is trying to align on the issue of the social norm. And then the importance of engaging couples in the changing of social norms. This has been key. We've had it from two key speakers. Let me see. Two key speakers who spoke on social norm, Jane Nwoke and then David Opoheme. They really spoke on how couples can be able to have a key role in when it comes to issue of social norms. We've had insight on NPF intervention and had to look and work with result and insights to social norms. Using notable and August meeting to change social norms was quite revealing. You know, we've seen how these things are revealing with this plan, and then to the learning group, we should be able to make sure that this thing comes in periodically. We shouldn't waste time on making it stay for 6 months. This thing should come in probably quarterly, and then let's see how we can be able to utilize this intervention, the social norm learning, and see how we can reach and activate more on communities on how to activate the social norms. Now we've had great insight and how to help organizations sustain the MFP project through meetings and at least once in a month. You could see how the MFP project is even looking at once in a month. Then utilizing gender champions by addressing GBV social norms. We've seen how equally how Andrew brought in the issue of champions, the norm champions, on how to address issues of even conflicts in areas and states and communities and vicinities. And you could see, so it's equally coming here and utilizing the gender champions to address. So you could see the norms and then the gender in this one interconnects in all facets. So, and I want to appreciate the use of social gatherings such as the August meeting in the house and in the Southeast Nigeria. And then we've seen example of how sorry, I got cut off from along the line, but I watched her wonderful presentation where you could see meetings, and then with pictures where she presented so wonderful on how meetings in Southeast Nigeria, probably in the August, you know, where occasions were used and then social norms are equally addressed. Wonderful presentation by them. And practically, these are few of those keywords before I actually got cut off with network. But then I will try to go through today. Today we'll be having, after my opening remarks, then we'll have a theme on gender-based violence by Memuna Mohammed, the Chief Executive Officer of Society for Women Development and Empowerment, that is SWODEN in Nigeria. Then and then we'll have intimate partner violence correlates from the Nigerian Demographic Health Survey in 2017 by Christabel Akinyode, that she's a researcher and is a thematic. Sorry, let me come up. Okay. Yeah, and then we'll have another Yusho Abokar, the Executive Director of Enhancing Community Action for Peace and Better Health Initiatives. That is the ECAP. And then he has a topic to discuss on thematic analysis of violence against women, girls in Rigasa and urban slum in Kaduna State. In fact, this is a very key and interesting topic that I hope I will have network connectivity so that I can be able to listen what is happening within gender and then violence against women. This has always been an issue. It's not only in Rigasa, it's happening almost everywhere. It's even happening in advanced countries where we think that there's no violence. It's always there. So we'll have those perspectives, most especially in Rigasa. Then we have another, the effect of social norms on sexual harassment and corporal punishment in public and private schools in Kaduna. This will be taken by Hadiza Umar, Executive Director of Hope for Communities and Children, that is the H4CC. This is one key area that has actually been bedeviling us here in Nigeria. We've seen where lecturers harass students. We've seen how equally students and those in primary or secondary school comes with scars that they've gotten from schools. And then we've seen how, some go for scores based on that. And, these are all harassment from all over when we go to education. So this is another key area that we will equally be looking at today. And then we'll have another aspect by Samala Yusuf by MGCL, that's the Gender and SBC Advisor Momentum Project, that's the GEOPEGO. Social norm, that drive child, early and forced marriage, intimate partner violence, adoption of family planning in Ebonyi State and Sokoto State. You could see, I'm sure we are not going to have any dull moment in this. Yesterday we have one, but I'm sure today's on will recap it all, and I'm sure we'll all go home happy. So I will want all of us to stay in behind from the first presentation to the last. There is no topic here that is not as key and important to our day-to-day life activity. Then the next term will be taken by Women Empowerment and Empowerment, which Professor Bieya Beatrice has been actually part of the learning and the collaborative team, Associate Professor of Community Medicine, University of Abuja. And then she'll be bringing in Ruth Peter Michelia, that is the National Project Coordinator, Nigeria for Women Project, that is NFWP. And then she'll bring in Mohamed Sarki Bello from Niger State Project Coordinator and MVPW. And then Godfrey Okomo, Totsan Project Coordinator. And then Kumo Mokati, Change for Management God USAID Endangering Industries Project, Tetra Tech. So this discussion is a panel discussion on social norm and women economic empowerment. In fact, this is key. I'm sure the women.
Sorry to barge in, but you have about just a minute to wrap up. So
okay, fine. Yeah. I'm wrapping up. Okay, this discussion is key, and then it's very important to us. Then we have occupational sex segregation in agriculture, evidence and gender norms and social emotional skill by Serabisi Papapini, and then we'll have another one from Kaduna State, assessment of practice of policies on gender norms and women economic empowerment in Kaduna State. So then we have policies on social norms. Then at the end, we'll have closing ceremony. I'm sure it's actually a real package that has been done for today's one. I want to thank you all that will give our time for listening. And I'm sure at the end, there will be more to hear at the end of the session. Those who are interested to join the social norm and the learning collaborative, you'll be welcome. Thank you so very much for giving me that time. Thank you, Michael, for the opportunity to give me to speak. Thank you. Go ahead.
So thank you so much for that, Mr. Emmanuel. If as one of our rules, please, I'd like to kindly ask that you mute yourself if you're not speaking. And I think we can go straight into the next section on gender-based violence. The moderator, Maimuna Mohammed, is the Chief Executive Officer of SWODEN, which is Society for Women's Development and Empowerment in Nigeria. Maimuna, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Aja. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, okay. The other speaker has done a very good job. And I know that the panel, I'm not the only one on the panel, this is just to introduce others that are on the panel. And as the topic connotes, gender-based violence, which cuts across. When we are talking about gender, please let us know that it is a two-way thing. We are more particular about women, but we also talk about men. So let me start by talking about the different category of people we are going to be discussing today. We are talking about the girl child and also the boy. We are also talking about the women and also the men, because it takes two to tango. When you are talking about violence, the two of them have to be addressed. Let us not talk about what is happening to us only. We talk about what is happening to the other party. I am going to look at it in the way that the girl child, what are the social norms that affect the girl child for her to be abused, either sexually or mentally or any other form of violence. Well, violence here, as professors will define, is not just about what we call violence in my own local society, is about beating her up or abusing her, but we have also other social violence that affects the progress of a girl child. And we can see that I've heard that we have many people that are going to talk in depth about all the different categories of violence that we have. But let us be very specific on who are we going to talk about, and then about the woman. Let us look at what the woman is going through, either at household level. The household might be in her parents' house or her husband's house, and then and also at the community level, which affects her own life, participation, and all other aspects of life that affects woman, that she is targeted because she's a woman, or the child is targeted because she's a girl or a boy. So let us put that into perspective as we're making our presentation. And then we know all the other social norms that affect, but when we are talking about social norms, please, as we are presenting, let us look at what are we going to be doing? If we look at problems, what are the solutions that we will put in place? And looking at the community, and also let us not forget that even us, the so-called educated and working, we also suffer gender-based violence. So let us not look at the other side of it. On the other side, let us all look at ourselves and see what are the contributing factors, what are the social norms that is also affecting us silently. Even though we want to agree that we know everything, but we suffer that gender-based violence and nobody is talking to us about that. And then we will look at the implication of what all these norms, social norms, and violence to the girl child, or the woman, or the man is having on us. So I hope that I've made the opening to facilitate all these presenters. Hello, Mikhail? Hello?
Yes, yes, you have. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
So are we going to start the discussion?
Yes, please go ahead. Yes.
Okay. So I have given a preamble on what I want to talk about. The girl child, from where I come from, we work at community level. And most of the social norms that affect the girl child is more of cultural, but they link it to religion. And when you look at the religion, the both religions, there's no aspect where a girl or a boy is differentiated to have access to either education. The most critical thing is about education. And she's been deprived of that. And she's been treated, because she's not educated, she goes to be a second-class citizen. That is a violence of itself. Or she is being used to hawk and make money for the family without her benefiting. And always they feel that a girl child shouldn't have a voice. And this starts even with the early marriage that we see, because she cannot say anything, she cannot decide, and she's just being herself, being taken care of by decisions are being taken on her behalf, which is a mental violence, even if she's not physically challenged, but a mental violence on itself. We also have to look at the issue of education. And some of us, that's where this Boko Haram and Co came about, that Western education is being frowned against at the community level. And then the preference for boys to go to school and the girls not to go to school. This affects her own decision-making capacity, because she doesn't even have the knowledge. She's not allowed to participate as a child, and then from home. So when she comes to the family level, because she's coming in with that aspect of depression, she might now be, even if she's violated against with her husband, she cannot talk because of the culture of silence that we have at our community level, and male dominance, it's a culture, not a religion aspect of it, because in a relationship, it's about partnership, even though he provides, but because of that culture of silence of the woman, it becomes very difficult for her to even talk and demand for her right in a subtle way, and then she's not given that right. So we will have to now see, what do we do as an organization or as individuals to see how we can address these things. And it shouldn't start from at level of programming where we speak English. It's about the community level, because this thing is more common at the community. We that work at the community level, you cannot just pity a woman in her husband's house that she cannot even tell him she wants to go to the hospital because she's not supposed to talk. And there are some factors that affect this at community level when we talk about mother-in-laws and we talk about grandmothers and all this. So
Haja, sorry to budget. Today we're very pressed on time. So if you round up the thank you for setting that lovely backdrop, for the section. If you can round up in 1 minute and then maybe hand over to the presenter. I think there's Christabel. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that is very great, because in my opening, I've addressed most of the issues that I want to talk about. So that gives us like preamble. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that wonderful backdrop.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Mrs. Maimuna, for your presentation. My name is Christabel Akinyode. I work in public health, but I have had an interest in gender-based issues for most of my life, and I have a master's in psychology. So when I saw the conference, I was very interested in studying and trying to understand the social norms that affect intimate partner violence. Collecting data on a large scale in Nigeria is very expensive, as we all know. And so I tried to see what sources of data we already had as a country. And I found that the Nigerian Demographic Health Survey has a whole section on domestic violence. And so what I'm going to do today is almost like setting like a background for what everybody else is going to do. Everybody else has these deep interventions that they've carried out, or these studies that they've carried out. And I basically am going to show through my work that everything that is happening is basically tied back to social norms. And so we're going to just briefly go over what the social norms are, what intimate partner violence is, and how it kind of shows forth, and what the Nigerian Demographic Health Survey is able to tell us about it. Next, please. All right, so gender-based violence are harmful acts directed at an individual based on their gender. It's typically rooted in gender inequality, the abuse of power, and harmful norms. And more likely than not, it's often directed towards women. It is a life-threatening health and protection issue. According to certain studies, close to about 60–70% of women who are killed in homicides are actually killed on the basis of gender-based violences, and that's across the world. So intimate partner violence is almost like a subsect of gender-based violence. It's abuse or aggression that occurs in a romantic relationship. It includes physical violence, sexual violence, stalking, and psychological aggression. A lot of people tend to think that intimate partner violence is reduced to only physical violence, and that if there's no marks or there's no scars on the individual's body, then the individual has not been violated. However, things such as stalking, which take away the peace of a particular individual, or psychological aggression, where the person is verbally abused, or the person is threatened, or the person is harassed or intimidated, are also things that are factors of intimate partner violence. Next slide, please. So I got this wheel from SBJ Live, and they basically were trying to kind of show the different ramifications of intimate partner violence. I need to say as I'm going forward that these are very triggering topics. And so if you feel what's the word? If you feel tense at these topics, please, you can exit for a few minutes. I'm going to be talking about things that are very, very harmful towards individuals. And so individuals would use things like coercion and threats. They would tell the person that if you don't do this, I would hurt you. Or if you don't do this, I would tell people that you're a bad person and I will hurt your social standing. Using things like intimidation, they look at the person, they threaten the person like they're going to beat the person. And even though they don't touch the person, that is enough to cause fear. Some people beat up the person's pets. They smash phones, smash televisions, things like that. Using emotional abuse as well, name calling, playing mind games. There are people who specialize in trying to make a person feel as though they are not a smart person. So everything the person say, they talk down on them, or they try to make them feel like they don't know anything. In certain parts of the country, I've heard people call women and say that women have fish brain. And that is almost like a method to make the women feel like as if their intelligence is not there, using isolation. So for example, there are individuals who would lock up a person in the house or make sure that they are not able to see friends or isolate them from friends and family, and use things like jealousy to limit their involvement in the world. So that takes away their economic empowerment, and some women or men are not able to work. They control what the individual does, where they go, where they read, things like that. They also deny and minimize and blame. So for example, a person could shift responsibility for abusive behavior. Oh, it's because of you I did it. I did it because you said this. I did it because you did that. Violence is not acceptable, but for power and for control, and because many people don't want to take responsibility, they will do that. Using children, some people will threaten to take children away. They'll threaten to, they'll make individuals feel guilty about their role in the children's life. So you're a bad father, you're a bad mother, you're not a good mother. And even in some advanced countries, they would say that Social Security will come and take the children away. And that threat is very, very pertinent. Using privilege, a person who has money, using that to abuse the person, and also using economic abuse. Next slide, please. All right, so what roles do social norms play in this? Social norms are the explicit and implicit societal rules that influence human behavior. Implicit means that you don't have to say it, but people know it. So if a person dresses like a TV person from Nigeria, for example, with their black and their white and with the way that they dance, you instantly know. But explicit is also in the person that is wearing the clothes by themselves. So just by seeing it, that, oh, this is what this person eats, this is what this person is wearing, and this is what this person is doing, are things, those are the ways that we are able to see like implicit and explicit. Now, when it comes to societal rules and human behavior is governed by a lot of spoken and unspoken rules. So for example, it is not a crime for in Nigeria for you to be disrespectful to an adult. However, the social rules that govern Nigeria, I beg your pardon, the social rules that govern Nigeria means that a lot of people are going to frown at you, or they are going to isolate you socially if you do disrespect an adult. Social norms can be classified. So many different theories have gone over this, from theories of planned behavior to so many different theories. But social norms can be split into two: injunctive norms and subjective norms. And I really like that Erica yesterday was able to kind of bring in the part about social sanctioning. It's something I feel like has not been researched enough in terms of what are the things that happen to a person if they don't follow social norms. And so injunctive norms are the things that an individual believes that other people in their social groups would actually do in a given situation. So for example, a person who believes in an injunctive norm, for example, has seen other people do it. So if it's intimate partner violence, for example, and they've witnessed that, oh, this is what people do when when there is an issue between a husband and a wife. So if they've watched people dialogue it out, that's what they believe that other people in their social group do. If they've watched people inflict gender-based violence on other individuals, that's what they believe that people in that social group would do. Subjective norms, however, are the things that an individual believes that other people in the social group would approve of. So for example, the chief of a village may not take away the phones from his wife and his children, but the man or the woman in the village who has taken away her phones as part of a control measure for their children or for the wives is believing that if we take this matter to the chief, even though the chief is not doing it, he does approve of it. So there are two ways to view it. Injunctive norms, where we believe that and we have viewed that other people are going to do this thing in a given situation. And also subjective norms, where we believe that, yeah, they might not do it, but if you take this matter to them, it is not going to cause me to be socially isolated. They're not going to look at me like, oh, I'm a bad person for doing such and such a thing. They are going to approve of it, even though they might not do it. Now, norms influence intimate partner violence correlates, such as the causes, help-seeking behaviors, and normalization of interpersonal violence, intimate partner violence in the society. And we're just going to look at it from the Nigerian Demographic Health Survey lens. Next slide, please. So the Nigerian Demographic Health Survey is a population level survey. It's conducted every 5 years, and the data is actually available openly. It's funded by USAID. The survey tells us that 31% of women have experienced intimate partner violence. And that out of this 31% of women, 84% of them have experienced severe intimate partner violence. Sorry, less severe intimate partner violence. Things like verbal abuse, shoving, threats, etc. 41% of them have experienced severe ones, which means punching, choking, beating, things that leave scars and marks on the body. And 33% of them have experienced intimate partner violence with a sexual component. Now, one thing we must remember is that the women who have experienced this might have experienced this at different points in time. So the same woman might have experienced sexual violence related intimate partner violence. She may have also experienced severe intimate partner violence and even the less severe intimate partner violence, because studies have shown us that individuals who are shoving and threatening are more likely to graduate to severe intimate partner violence, such as choking, beating, etc. Next slide, please. Thank you. So how does this affect health-seeking behavior? We have said that norms are injunctive and descriptive or subjective. And injunctive norms mean that what will people do? Subjective norms or descriptive norms means that what do they approve of? Now, in our society, we've found that a lot of individuals are less likely to actually go and seek help for this. So help-seeking behavior of women, only about 50% of the women experiencing intimate partner violence sought help. 50% of them, that's 1 in every 2, half of them did not even bother seeking help at all, which means that in our society, the norms that govern human behavior tell us that we are not supposed to seek help, which implies at least that the norms in our society tell us that we are not supposed to seek any help. Now, those who sought help actually reached out to family and friends, and then less than 5% of the respondents actually sought help from a lawyer, police, or a social service organization. And so what does this mean for us? I'm going to reach where it means for us. Let me just move to the next slide. The other part about it is intergenerational factors. 1/3 of women who have experienced severe interpersonal violence or intimate partner violence witnessed their father beat their mother, which means that if they've seen this thing occur before, there is a likelihood that they accept that this is what people do, or that this is what people will approve of. That it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world to happen to a person. Regression analysis that I also carried out showed that if a woman is being hit, it can actually predict her future IPV. So if today a child is witnessing her mother or her father being hit, they are going to more likely than not accept that this is what happens in society, that this is a norm and that this is okay to happen in society. Next slide, please. So my last slide says, what are the implications and what can we do? The implications are this. First, descriptive norms prefer that Nigerians keep it in the family. Keeping it in the family is what makes a person decide that they would rather go to family and friends than go to the social service organizations, than go to the police. Injunctive familiar norms are strong. Injunctive familiar norms basically means that what would people do in such situations? We have not gotten to a point in our society where it is a norm that if intimate partner violence occurs, then you should go to a social service organization, then you should go to a police, or then you should contact a lawyer. Individuals have come in Nigerian society at that point where it's better to just either not say anything about it because they've watched other people not say anything about it, or they're afraid of being ostracized because they know that other people will not approve of them going to go and say anything about it. And what does this mean? It means that studies this, and it just kind of backs up some of the studies that have shown that people and societies where they keep it in the family, quote and unquote, or that they are afraid of being ostracized as a result of going to go and, you know, make these reports and go to the police or go to a lawyer. People in such societies continue to perpetuate it. So their intimate partner violence levels never goes down. Gage in 2005, Hindi in 2008 have proven this, that as long as it continues to be rectified by family and friends, there is no strong enough deterrent for individuals who engage in intimate partner violence to stop. What can we do? We can amplify the work of social services. I know there are a number of our colleagues here who are doing work in that area, and amplification of that work to make it a norm that if this happens, then we should do this. If a person steals from someone, the first thing that they're thinking of is how do we report to the police? We need to get to that point in our country where when intimate partner violence occurs, we are able to say we are going straight to a social service organization, we're going straight to the police, we're going straight to a lawyer. And lastly, we can support social and behavioral change communication to promote better family norms. I'll take an example, and this is my last point. I'll take an example of Yoruba media, where a woman is raped, and in Yoruba movies, they try to portray it as a thing that should be settled in the family, and that the man will forgive her after 20 years, and that he would then remember. And those are like, those are the media, that's the media that we consume. And so we need to start to change what we are consuming, and the information that is going out there in social and behavioral change communication, in traditional media, in social media, which a lot of people have already done, and in traditional media, social media, and also in community drama, theater, which are things that we have found in public health that work to be able to change behavior. Obviously, it's not a one-day job, it's not a one-year job. It's something that is going to take a lot of time, but for as much as we amplify the work of social services and we support social and behavioral change communication to promote better family values, we would be able to see a difference. Thank you very much, everyone. That's me.
Thank you very much, Christabel, for that presentation. And now we move to the next presentation by Yeshua M. Abubakar. Over to you, Yeshua.
Yes, good afternoon all.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here and given the opportunity to present this finding on the a thematic analysis on the violence against women and girls in Rigasa community and Ebon Sulum area in Kaduna State. I'm the founder and executive director for Enhancing Communities Action for Peace and Better Health Initiative. It's a youth-led civil society organization currently here in Kaduna. We work around gender-based violence and mobilizing young people to address other social biases in around their community. Please, can you move to the next? Okay, the authors on this research include myself, Yushem Abubakar, Hafsat Aboki, Naka, and also in Infon, and Kingsley, and others. Can you go forward, please? Next presentation, next page. Okay, these are the affiliation, the Enhancement Community Action for Peace and Better Health Initiative, which is the organization I'm leading, a National Agency for the Control of AIDS, Abuja, Nigeria, and the Federal Ministry of Health and AIDS Health Foundation, Abuja, Nigeria. Please. Okay, the background. On the background, and this is a national data on the National Demographic Survey 2018 that talk about the 35% of the women in Nigeria that experience violence from the age of 15. And this is very alarming and also needs attention because women need to be protected, they need to be safe, they need to live in a healthy and environment. So it's an alarming and it's called for urgent awareness, urgent action to prevent all this happening around our communities. So as we can see, Rigasa community situation is different because the community is densely populated and it's an urban slum in Kaduna State, where women and girls suffer different forms of violence without justice due to lack of reporting, also sometimes lack of awareness, a lot of issues that happen around the communities, and it's what call for this study. So the aim of this study were to identify the risk factors relating to the violence against women and girls in the community, and access their knowledge, attitude, and practice about violence against women growth in the community. Next slide. Okay, the method of the study. The study used a mixed method approach comprising key informant interview and survey. The study also involved the use of structured questionnaire, purposive sampling, technique, transfer work, and field enumerators with targeted respondents from various districts that make up the Ligasa community. Ligasa is the largest community that has about 36 districts around it. So we structured the questionnaire and also sent data enumerators across different districts that made up the Ligasa community. So the respondents come across this district. 8 KRI were held with multi-sectoral stakeholders that include the health sector, the social welfare, legal, and police. Descriptive and thematic analysis were done after the collection of the data. Next. Okay, now the result of the survey. After the survey, about 70% of the respondents reported witnessing either sexual or physical violence towards women group in the community. This is alarming, actually. And 63% of the respondents were unaware of the legal rights that protect women group against violence in Kaduna State. About 70% indicate that they will report violence against women group when they've seen any happen, but 5% agree to confront the perpetrators of the violence against women group, while 10% indicated that they will ignore an incident of violence against women group. Over 70% of the respondents view religious as the key determinant of the legal rights of women group, while 26% view existing laws of Kaduna State as the key determinant. Well, 24% believe in the cultural as the key determinant. Well, 22% believe in the family values as the key determinant. Well, 15% believe in the social norms as the key determinant to the legal right of women in the Kaduna State. And this is alarming and it's called for awareness and actions by the stakeholders around the community, including CSO, government, and any other person around any actors around that can take the call forward. Next slide. Okay, in conclusion, the study underscores the need to increase the knowledge and promote good attitude and positive behavior of the legal rights of women groups in the community. The purpose of the study is for a project that are undergoing at the community level, where we have a multi-sectoral collaboration between the health sectors, and police, the legal people, and social welfare, including the traditional leaders, religious leaders, young people, women group, and other key actors at the community level that were involved in this project. So after the study, we engage these people about the need for them to take serious attention, to utilize attention to the issue around violence against women group at the community. So we promote the positive behavior of the legal rights of women in the community. We also recommend that a bridge version of the laws that protect women's rights in Kaduna State be produced and disseminated in the community. So this was already ongoing, and also we engage media people and other key stakeholders of the community in promoting this awareness about the legal framework that prevent violence against women group in Kaduna State. Education on the forms of abuse and their prescribed punishment is essential for all demographic groups. Coordinating the traditional leaders, community-based organizations, police, lawyers, and primary health care centers. These are also ongoing at the community level. So this is the finding, and this is what we are doing at the community level when it comes to the issue of violence against women group in Ligasa community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is a very wonderful presentation, and it is also very rich. So we'll now call on the next speaker, Mikhail. Hello.
Yeah,
Hello?
Ajay, yes, you can go
Yeah.
ahead. I think the next speaker is
Okay.
Yusuf Samaila. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Are they ready for the presentation? Hello? Are we ready for the next speaker, please?
Okay. the
No
next
response.
speaker- Yeah, it seems like we're having maybe they're not here. Meredith,
Oh,
can
is
you
she
confirm?
coming on board?
I see that Maroji is on.
Okay.
Maroji, would you like
She-
to take it away?
Okay. Okay. All right.
She is on.
Okay. Good luck. Thank you.
Hello,
We
Samaila.
have a hand raised. I just want to confirm if that's Amelia. Can you?
Oh, yeah.
There's a hand raised. I just want to confirm if it was a question or if.
Are we
No, I'm
taking
sorry,
questions?
this is a mistake.
No, I
Okay,
want to
we'll
confirm
take
if it's a
questions
question or
later.
if it's regarding the presentation.
No,
Okay,
I'm sorry,
that's
this is
Emilia.
a mistake from me. Please continue. Mute me,
Okay.
please.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
right, all right.
So I see Samaila Yusuf here. Can you test your sound? We're not hearing you.
Maybe she has muted.
I'm seeing their sound unmuted. Let's see.
We are still waiting.
Hello, Samaila Yusuf. Can you maybe log out and log back in and we'll test your sound again? We're not hearing you. In the meantime, we can take questions for the first two speakers. If you have a question, you can raise your hand or you can type into the chat box. And then we will try to come back to the
No
speaker.
question.
So please, if you have any questions for the first two speakers, please feel free to use the chat box while we wait.
It seems we don't have questions. We don't have.
Can everyone hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, hi, my name is Marochi Sabani. Samaila was supposed to present on the social norms exploration in Sokoto and Iboni State. But
Yeah.
it looks like he's trying to join. If he can't, then maybe I can step in for him.
Okay, that will be great. So I would save time.
So Samaila exited and entered it again. Do you want to try your sound?
He's still not on.
He's on.
Okay, he said he's on now. Okay. Can you please go on?
He's muted. Could you unmute him?
Hi, Samaila, you should be able to unmute now. You want to test your sound again? We see you unmuted, but we are not hearing you.
No, we can't hear you.
Okay, I would just ask in the interest of time if Maroji could just get us started. Because we are not hearing you.
Yeah, sure. Can you go ahead and pull up the slides?
Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name, oh.
Hi.
Samila, is that you?
Yeah. So, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Apologies for the technical itch. So I will just continue with the presentation. I'm Samaila Yusuf. I'll be making the presentation on behalf of my co-authors, Meroji Sebani, Silvarius Obafemi, Myra Bertrand, and Chioma Odwenhi. The title of our presentation is Social Norms That Drive Child, Early and Forced Marriage, Intimate Partner Violence, and Early Adoption of Family Planning in Ebonyi and Sokoto State of Nigeria. So permit me to run you through the background of the Momentum Country Global Leadership Project before, delving into the study and its findings. So Momentum Country Global Leadership Project is a 5-year multi-country award funded by USAID to provide effective and promising evidence-based intervention to prevent intimate partner violence, sexual violence, child early and forced marriage, and also promote early adoption of family planning. So the goal of the program is to address major contributors to maternal mortality and morbidity through the prevention and mitigation of the consequences of violence against women and girls and possible drivers of early and forced marriage. And, the program objectives is to develop the capacity of communities, local organizations, and providers to deliver health, evidence-based quality, intimate partner violence, sexual violence, child and early forced marriage, and voluntary family planning services responsive to population in needs. Secondly, it's also to increase access to and sustain use of evidence-based quality IPV, SD, child early and forced marriage, including family planning and reproductive information, services, and then intervention. The expected outcome is to build the capacity of local organizations and communities, to deliver evidence-based quality GBV prevention and response interventions, implementation of policies to support GBV response and prevention services by government, adoption of positive social and cultural norms in targeted communities. And the anticipated impact is to accelerate improvements in maternal, newborn, and child health through positively transformed gender norms. Now, in order to drive the project strategy towards achieving impact, the intervention is guided by theory of change, which seeks to incorporate gender lens across prevention, response, and transformative programming necessary to address our social norms. Next slide. So given the enormity of gender-based violence in Nigeria, the Momentum Country and Global Leadership Project conducted a social norms exploration in Ebonyi and Sokoto State to understand the social norms that drive child, early and forced marriage, intimate partner violence, sexual violence, and early adoption of family planning. And to also identify who the reference groups are for the main or target population and by behavior. And of course, the behavior of interest remain child early and forced marriage, intimate partner violence, and early adoption of family planning. And also finally, to identify what norms exist and support each behavior by target population, triangulated with reference groups.
Sorry, we lost him again. Hello?
Samila, we're not hearing you. Maroji, do you want to jump in?
Sure. I think he was covering the objectives. And so as he was saying, One of the objectives was to identify people who uphold or enforce the norms by approving or disapproving of the behaviors just mentioned. And ultimately, are you back, Samaila?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so the social norms exploration was conducted in 4 LGAs and 8 communities in the 2 states, Ebonyi and Sokoto state. And these LGAs and communities were actually selected based on the following criteria. That is, communities with large population, communities with the poorest indicators on child and early forced marriage, intimate partner violence, and early adoption of family planning. And of course, communities that are secure in terms of accessibility to our researchers and participants, taking into consideration the security situations within those localities. Now, the social norms exploration was conducted in two stages. The first stage involved identifying the reference group of the main or target population by using my social network tools. And then the individual rapid interviews were also
Did we lose him again?
Yeah, can somebody just take over so that we save time?
Sure, I can step in. So in the first stage, we conducted rapid interviews with the main population group. We asked them to basically identify top 5 individuals that have influence in their lives on the 3 behaviors mentioned. Following that, once those individuals were identified, focus group discussions were conducted with individuals from the main population group as well as individuals from the reference groups. And the objective of this was really to explore and to unpack the social norms that drive these behaviors, as well as to identify the people who support or the people who do not support these behaviors. So what came out of that exercise was we were able to.
So, okay.
Are you back, Samaila? Samaila, do you want to take it from here? Are you back? Okay, I'll go ahead. So the reference groups identified in stage 1
was conducted. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Samaila, we can hear you. Go ahead.
The network is okay. So the social norms explorations was conducted in 2 stages. In the first stage,
I think we've lost him again.
Samaila, you're muted.
Can
you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can hear you. Please go ahead.
So the social norms exploration was conducted in 2 stages. The first stage involved identifying the reference group, of the main target population using the biosocial network tool. Individual rapid interviews were conducted with the main population group, where they were asked to identify influential people that provide guidance, information, advice, or support on a specific behavior. So a total of 657 participants were interviewed to identify the reference group for each behavior of interest. So in stage 2, discussions were also conducted with the main population. This was used to engage participants in identifying and exploring social norms that relate to the behavior of interest. The 5 whys were used for a deep dive to explore the root causes identified by the participants. A total of 72 focus group discussions were conducted for the main population group and 24 for the reference group. A total of 872 participants were involved in the in stage 2 of the data collection. So it is significant to mention that the reference group identified in stage 1 of this study were similar across all the communities in both states. Parents of adolescent girls were the most cited reference group for child, early and forced marriage. And then nurses, community healthcare providers were the most cited reference group for early adoption of family planning in Ebonyi. While mothers and in-laws were most mentioned in Sokoto. For intimate partner violence, mothers and fathers-in-laws of women were the most mentioned reference group. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. So in terms of the findings related to child and early forced marriage, key influencers who enforce the norms linked to child early and forced marriage, as well as those
I think we lost him again. I think in the interest of time, we're going to need to just have Roji finish the presentation.
Please do that.
Okay. So as Samaila was saying, so in all of the discussions held with the main population and the reference groups across communities in both states, participants mentioned that adolescent girls really have limited decision-making power regarding their marital choices and timing. Therefore, they're expected to obey and agree with their parents' decisions to marry them off. So we see that the majority of the adolescent girls and the reference group members across all of the group discussions indicated that members of their communities expect girls to remain virgins until they get married. And CFM is also viewed as sort of as a safety measure and is used to justify child marriage as a way to minimize the risk of unintended or early adolescent pregnancy. And also to prevent, these norms are also used to prevent girls from engaging in premarital sex. And some families actually felt that marrying them off before puberty was a way to prevent this from happening, which is sort of related to the norm around protecting girls' chastity. And then we also saw that girls were described as being a burden to the family, while sons were perceived as having greater economic value. So that was another factor that emerged in our study. In terms of non-normative factors, we saw that the participants spoke a lot about the lack of knowledge on the consequences, the negative consequences of child marriage. Participants also spoke about how CEFM was linked to the belief that it protected girls or adolescent girls from being victims of sexual harassment. That was interesting. According to the participants, they felt like girls who experienced sexual abuse couldn't get pregnant outside of wedlock, therefore, which would bring shame to the family. So, and then finally, we also saw that poverty was a main driver. So families chose to give away their daughters in marriage to ease the financial burden of caring for them. So this responsibility was shifted to the husband once the girls entered their marriages. In terms of people who supported, can you go back to the previous slide? So in terms of those who are supportive of child marriage, we see that parents and grandparents really felt that this norm should continue, whereas school teachers, educated family members, family and community members, as well as traditional leaders were opposed to child early and forced marriage. Can you move on to the next slide, please? In terms of early adoption of family planning, the social norms exploration found that there were several norms which impeded the uptake of family planning. Across all of the group discussions, we saw that the participants revealed women's limited decision-making power as hindering them from accessing and taking up family planning methods, and that basically all fertility decisions were determined by their husbands or grandparents in the case of Sokoto. Women were also expected to start childbearing early, which meant that they couldn't access methods. And in some cases, we saw that traditional and religious beliefs were identified as important factors which shape health behaviors, such as the use of family planning. And religious leaders were cited as those who encourage large family sizes and therefore did not support the use of any family planning. Another interesting finding that came out was that the participants mentioned that a large family size was perceived as sort of enhancing the family social status in the community, and there was this pressure to ensure that the family lineage continued, again, which meant that family planning use was not supported. In terms of non-normative factors, we saw that the actual as well as the perceived costs were a major challenge for the early adoption of family planning. And based on the group discussions, it was also clear that there were some knowledge gaps around the benefits of family planning, and that it was not really prevalent in the communities. The use of it wasn't prevalent. And of course, unsurprisingly, there were a lot of myths and misconceptions around the early use of FP. And then, can you go back to the previous slides? So the participants identified.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'll be quick. The participants identified mothers of adolescent girls as well as young women, and adolescent girls themselves being supportive of family planning use, whereas husbands and husbands' parents and peers were identified as those who did not support the adoption of family. In terms of intimate partner violence and sexual violence, we saw that the reference group as well as the main population group expressed that sex was a man's right and women are obligated to fulfill their husband's sexual desires. So denial of sex meant that it would often result in intimate partner violence or sexual violence. And there was also this general sentiment that it was acceptable for men to beat their wives if women were being disobedient or engaged in any behavior that their husbands didn't approve of. So really male authority within the household was something that came out very strongly. And this belief that men were more superior to women was just, I think, unsurprising, but came out quite a bit throughout all of the interviews. And there was also this understanding that women should not report or expose anything about violence that they had experienced within their marriage or within their family to others in the community. In terms of the non-normative factors, we saw that women's economic vulnerability as well as fear that women were having an extramarital affair were contributing to the prevalence of IPV and sexual violence, and also in Sokoto, limited or poor couples communication was also a factor. And again, in terms of those supporting and not supporting IPV, it was similar across both communities, and you can see the individuals who are identified on the screen. So in summary, the main takeaways from this social norms exploration was that the social and gender norms underpinning child early and forced marriage, FP and IP were prevalent in both settings. And we also saw that the importance to address these factors came out quite a bit. And in order to do so, we felt that engaging the reference groups who are identified in this exercise is a key way to begin to tackle some of these harmful norms. And one way to do that is through gender transformative approaches, which seek to address some of the underlying inequalities and power dynamics contributing to these behaviors. So I'll stop there and see if we have time for questions. And really sorry for all the technical issues. We weren't expecting this. So thank you for bearing with us.
Thank you very much. This is very rich and educating. Because of the time factor, we have the chat box and we have questions. Please can presenters respond to the questions on the chat box, because now we don't have much time to go. And I learned that there's Hadiza around to say one or two things before we close the session. Is Hadiza around? I saw on the chat box that Mikhail, is Hadiza around?
Yes, I think Hadiza is here. We had skipped her presentation earlier, but if she's here, she can go through it maybe in the next 10 minutes, so we can have the Q&A session.
Yeah, okay.
And we'll have to do Q&A in the chat box because we're very behind time. So feel free to just type away between the presenters and the people asking questions. And Hadiza, if you could just take us quickly through and wrap up at 2:55. Thank you so much for being here. I think we might have lost her.
Yeah.
Okay, she was having network issues. So we have 7 minutes. So let's, Maimuna, you can go ahead and take some questions from the chat box. Hi, Maimuna, can you hear us? You can take, go ahead and take some questions.
Okay. We're now ready for the questions. We have on the chat box, we have some, but we agreed that people can answer those questions on the chat box because there are many. It's about the tools used for the study. So, and a link has been given, so that one will solve some problems. So do you have any other question from the audience? Raise your hands and then we can give you the chance to ask and then we'll answer. Okay. Anyone? Okay, we have somebody. Can you talk, please?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, really interesting presentation there. I wanted to find out if the women in these studies were in support of these social norms that are prevalent in their communities, or they expressed desire to speak up, or didn't want to get married at such a young age, or wanted to get family planning and stuff like that.
Okay, can we get response from the presenter, please?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, in some cases, we did see that women were supportive of some of the norms and some of the harmful behaviors. When it came to child early and forced marriage, we saw that adolescent girls were not supportive of it, whereas mothers were supportive of it. When it came to IPV and sexual violence, it was primarily the men who were in favor of these norms, and the women didn't seem to support it. They actually spoke up and said this is not something they wanted to see in their communities. So this was really used as a formative assessment. So we didn't explore, we didn't ask them about whether they were doing anything to address it within their communities. I think as we move into the intervention phase, it will be interesting to see what programs or how women are involved in the communities to kind of tackle these harmful norms. Samaila, do you have anything to add there?
Okay.
Hi, Meroji. Yes, yes, in line with what you said, yes, most of the interests, that came out, particularly from women, was indicative of the fact that they will have want to, adopt, family planning. However, because of the kind of reproductive coercion that goes in, particularly expressed by the men group, they feel coerced and, sometimes challenged, deprived of those opportunities. So, yes, the women were actually really interested in initiating family planning, particularly at the early stage. One of the reactions, particularly from the men, was that they were not comfortable for these women to initiate family planning, especially for first-time parents, within the first year of marriage. So for them, yes, it's something that can be extended beyond. But of course, like Meroji has it's mentioned, because of preference for male child, for preference for high number of children, as the case may be, that prevented women from adopting family planning at that point.
Thank you very much. We have anybody? Any hand raised? Can't see any. So are we all comfortable with the presentations that we don't have questions? Because these findings are very crucial for us, we that are in the field. We need to get answers so that it will inform our proposals and also interventions at the community level. And then sharing this finding will be very great for every one of us in this conference. So is there any other thing? Okay, Michael, what are we doing with time?
I think we're good on time. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I want to confirm if all the questions in the chats have been answered. I know I see the last question from Rebecca. But you want to confirm if that's been answered? Rebecca, do you want to ask that question, or has it already been answered by Samaila?
Okay, I'm just responding to that, but I can also mention that one of the additional findings or quick wins that we got from the co-creation was, situating the interventions, from the lens of human-centered design, particularly, looking at the socio-ecological model, that whatever intervention that we are coming up with should be viewed, should be approached from the socio-ecological model, that is activities that will inform norm shifting around policy, around service delivery ecosystem, around the community, at the interpersonal level, as well as the individual level, so that it's holistic and is encompassing, in a show that it covers the whole domain, around the socio-ecological model. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. It's
Okay,
really helpful.
Great. There are requests on the chat that we need the presentation, and I know that the organizers will share the presentation with all of us to guide us in other projects. So, Mikhail, is there no question you saw that we didn't take into
No,
consideration?
I think we're good to move ahead now. Because of time, because we're just on time. So to save time, I see there's a hand raised by Aisha. Aisha, would you be okay to put the question in the chat, and then we'll have the presenters touch on it through the chat. For now, we'll be moving to the next section to keep to time, as we promised you that we'll be keeping to time. We're moving to our next session, and I just want to thank all the presenters of the previous session. That was a great presentation. Those were great presentations, and thank you to Haja Maimuna for moderating that session, even with all the technical issues we had during the session. So for the next session, it's themed Women's Economic Empowerment, and this session will be moderated by Professor Biaya Beatrice Wanko. Professor Biaya is an associate professor of community medicine in the University of Abuja in Nigeria, and Professor Biaya is also a member of the community of practice of the Learning Collaborative in Nigeria. So with no more further ado, Professor Biaya, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mikhail. Thank you everyone once again for joining. Welcome to this session of the conference, which was the panel discussion on social norms, women's economic empowerment. Really excited to be moderating this session. Knowing that social norms play a central role for women's economic empowerment, a lot of evidence have shown social norms constrain women's economic opportunities. These vary by region and culture, but cutting across the world, social norms often restrict women's ability to enter the labor market and access to many occupations. So while the importance of social norms is generally recognized, programs for women's economic empowerment tend to pay little attention to social norms. Yesterday, the Honorable Commissioner for Health, Kaduna State, her opening remarks highlighted how women's economic empowerment programs in Nigeria amounts to providing palliatives during crisis situations like we saw the pandemic and what happened last year. So the practitioners often shy away from the prospects of changing the deeply rooted social norms that keep women impoverished. But the truth is that we need policies and actions that match the words, the situation on the. Again, Beatrice yesterday also shared my thoughts, really. Working as a house officer, in those days, and also in the emergency pediatric units, and also working as a medical officer in the accident and emergency unit. Many of these women will stroll in or walk into the clinic, emergency clinic, late in the evening, either with their children or child or for themselves. And I always ask them, most times presenting quite late, why are you coming late into the clinic? This child had been ill for quite some days now, or you yourself, as the case may be. And the answer is always the same. He hasn't been around. That is the reality that we are working with. The husband has not been around, so she couldn't take decisions for herself. A child that had been ill for this. If she was empowered, certainly the story would have been different. A lawmaker in Nigeria, sometime last year also, from one of the states, said something like, don't empower the women too much. He said, I'm not against empowering the women, but I think don't empower the women too much. Otherwise, the men will not be able to control them anymore. So those are the realities we're dealing with, our situation. So to join me this afternoon in Nigeria, the panel discussants, we have 4 people to join us. They include Ruth Peter Michelia from National Project Coordinator, Nigeria for Women Project. We also have Mohammed Sarki Bello, Niger State Project Coordinator, also from Nigeria for Women Project. We also have Godfrey Okumo, Tostan Program Coordinator, Nigeria for Women Project. And we also have Kumo Okefi from Change Management Coach, USAID Engendering Industries Project, Tetra Tech. Thank you and welcome to this session. If you're in, can I please hear your response?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, thank you. You can see Kumo.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. All right, thank you. Godfrey.
Yes,
Mohammed.
Yes, this is Mohammed Sarki Bello.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm in.
Thank you so much for joining us. What of Ruth Peter Michelia? You're in?
Yes, I will be representing Mrs. Ruth Peter Michelia because she's presently on mission in Kebbi State, and she's at a place where she cannot be able to access network. So I am to represent her in this conference and do her presentation in addition to mine, if you let me.
Okay, so you're doubling for her as well. Thank you. You're
Okay.
welcome. You're all welcome. Yes.
Thank you. Good day, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Like I said earlier, my name is Mohammed Sarki Bello, the Niger State Project Coordinator for Nigerian for Women Project. Mrs. Peter Ruth Michelia is presently in an area where she is not able to access the network signals, and so she won't be able to participate in this discussion. So I tender her apology.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Yeah.
So, please, would you, from your perspective, from your sector, can you tell us about your recent work on social norms and women's economic empowerment in Nigeria? I will start with Kumo Mokefi. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrongly.
That is fine. Thank you, Professor Nwanko, and I hope I have pronounced yours correctly too.
It's fine.
Yes. So I am a change management coach for the USAID Engendering Industries program. The program, and quickly, I know we have limited time, so I'll be brief. So the program is founded on the business case that gender diverse companies not only empower women economically, but also improves company performance. So in essence, gender equity is not just the right thing to do, but this a smart thing to do for companies. And there is a growing body of evidence globally that supports this case, but also the utility companies that we work with. There's emerging evidence that supports this. This work involves several partners, which are Men Engage Alliance, Georgetown University, McDonough Business School, Johns Hopkins University, Tetra Tech, and USAID. The program builds the capacity of leaders and companies in male-dominated industries to identify critical gender equality gaps, implement interventions, and directly increase economic opportunities for women, as well as strengthen business performance in male-dominated industries. We work with 41 partner companies in 29 countries and 22% private, 66 public. In Nigeria itself, we work with 7 companies. 3 have completed the training and 5 of them are receiving training as we speak. Our model briefly builds capacity through 4 key strategic tools and processes, which is a customized best practice framework, demand-driven expert coaching, gender equity executive leadership programs, and a robust monitoring and evaluation program, which involves a scorecard tool that enables organizations to track and monitor progress. The entry point for gender equality intervention is the employee life cycle, which has 2 layers. The first layer focuses on 8 phases so 8 phases where we can potentially lose women. And these 8 phases focus on how women are attracted, how they are hired, how they are engaged in the company, developed, and also how they are supported for advancement. And the second layer focuses on creating an enabling environment, because we understand that unless the environment is conducive, we will not be able to achieve the 8 stages of the employee life cycle. I will also later post the link to the Engendering Utilities program so that you read more about it. So in the work with the 7 companies, what we have realized some of the norms that we have uncovered that are common to both men and women, and also a serious barrier to our program. There was about 7 key norms, and some of them include that nurturing is natural for women, so women should take care of children. The other is that women have self-control sexually and therefore have the responsibility to prevent sexual violence in the way that they dress and behave. Also, men are logical and analytical and therefore more suitable in technical positions. Men are breadwinners and therefore should be given more opportunities. And men are head of the family, and that is biblical, and hence they're more suitable for leadership positions. Some have said, how can you expect men to lead an organization when they are not heading the family? And the other is that domestic care, that women are good at domestic work, so therefore they should stay. It makes sense for them to stay at home. So these were held embraced norms by both men and women, and we had to implement several interventions to help to process some of these norms and help shift and change the norms. The impact.
Thank you very much, Kumo.
Okay, but
well, sorry, I have to interrupt you here. I think we'll still come back to you. The discussion is quite interesting. Yeah, thank you. So, this is Ruth's time. But it means that Sarki will answer on her behalf, like said earlier on. Mohammed?
Yeah, yes, Mohammed is here. Thank you.
Okay, so doubling for Ruth as well.
Yes. Yes, like I said earlier, I'll be presenting on behalf of Mrs. Ruth Michelia, and her presentation is on social norms and women economic empowerment. Now, under the Nigerian for Women project, so I'll give a brief on the project description. The Nigerian for Women project is a project implemented by the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs with a credit facility from the World Bank. The project implementation commenced in May 2018 and is expected to be completed in 2023. The project uses a multidimensional approach to overcome the main institutional and market failures limiting women's economic outcomes in Nigeria. The project's implementation approaches that have proven to contribute women's economic empowerment in Nigeria, and this is being done across multi-cultural contexts. Now, the project development objective of this project is to support improved livelihoods for women in targeted areas. The project is implementing in 6 states, with each state representing each of the nation's geopolitical zones. Now, the project components. The project has 4 strategic components. 1, building social capital. The project builds social capital by, first of all, influencing social norms. And then it also, by providing support to the women affinity groups. The second component of the project is livelihoods program. This is where livelihood support is grant is given to individual. And then there's also support to collective livelihoods that is given to women who have the same, who have self-selected into the same economic activity. Then there's also the innovations and partnership, and of course, project management, monitoring, and evaluation. Now, the Nigerian for Women project targets 54,000 beneficiaries. The beneficiaries are women engaged in informal and unimpersonal small-scale businesses and subsistence farming per state. Then, of course, the total men in these communities that are the target areas of the project are also going to be benefiting from the project by way of training and sensitization activities that will be going on in their communities. The project, like I said earlier, is implementing in 6 states, with each of the states implementing the nation's geopolitical zones. We have Niger, we have Taraba, we have Abia, Ogun, and Kebbi states that are presently implementing the project. Behaviors of interest to the Nigerian for Women project in project locations goes as follows. Predominant practices that affect women. Women being prohibited from inheriting productive assets. Women's movement prohibited in certain places. Inability to make decisions to aspire and pursue goals. We also have behaviors, we also have household joint decision making, which is one of the areas that is of interest to the project. We also, the project is also trying to resolve issues around intimate partner violence. So what are
Okay,
the
thank you
answers?
so much, Mohammed. Yeah, thank you
Okay.
for the work you're doing. Yeah, we hear you take more of your take on that. Even though you're doubling for yourself and Ruth, it's actually your time to give us your own perspective.
Okay. My perspective on the recent work I've done would be during the recruitment of ward facilitators in one of the local governments who are implemented, which is Agai local government in Niger State. What happened was women came up for the recruitment exercise. And then as part of the recruitment process, there's also an oral questioning interview of the candidates. And then there was this woman who was asked her name. She only mentioned her name but couldn't mention the name of her husband because apparently it was a taboo. It was against the norm for her to just mention the name of her husband. And again, as an implementer of this project, I didn't find it very funny. And I said, I wasn't going to allow her to participate in the process until she's able to introduce herself properly by mentioning her name and that of her husband. So the situation was getting really funny to such an extent that the husband was summoned. And then I requested the husband to ask his wife to tell me her full name. And then she mentioned her name, but couldn't still say his name. So I asked him, why is your wife refusing to say your name? And his reply was that it is a form of insolence for his wife to mention his name. And then I told him that this is one of the issues and one of the social norms that this project is coming to this community, to this local government to address. And if at this point his wife cannot say his name, then it means the local government and the community are not ready for this project. So at that point, he agreed that his wife should mention his name, which she did, and we took it up from there. Another social norm issues that I also observed recently in my work on women economic empowerment in Niger State is that one thing that was clearly observed is that men are socially superior to women and have the right to assert power over them. And like during our community entry in one of the communities, one of the community leaders told us in clear terms that their women don't have the capacity to participate in this project and even make a success out of it. And we didn't find that funny because we told them that the women should be allowed the opportunity first before being judged as not being able to do what is expected of them in the project. So in a nutshell, what we observe is that in these communities, women are voiceless to whatever faults they find in their environment. They are not expected to have opinions of their own and must do as commanded, no matter how wrong or irrational it might seem. And due to the religious and cultural factors in our communities, women tend to accept suffering or losing happiness in marriages as part of worshiping God or as a religious activity. And as a result of that, the men capitalize on that to treat them in ways that might not be right. So other social norms issues we have also experienced or noticed in the communities is that women that are outspoken are seen as being proud as promiscuous. And then we had to liaise with the religious and the traditional rulers. And thankfully, sometimes in the May of this year, the project is collaborated with Tostan in Senegal, which in which we went on a study tour for a 2 weeks program. As part
Thank
of
you
the
so
takeaway
much
from
once again, Mohammed. I wish we had all the time to ventilate on all the issues that are burning.
All right,
But
thank you.
yes, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, you will have the opportunity to respond to some of the questions the participants. So,
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So I'll go back to Kumo. Please kindly respond to this. From your perspective, once again, from your sector, can you give us some examples of lessons learned that could be useful for others working on social norms and women's economic empowerment in Nigeria?
Okay, so based on the social norms that I indicated earlier, the impact is that there are biases and discrimination as a result. The limited talent pool, girls not many girls interested in studying STEM, or women wanting to pursue technical subjects, job segregation, whereby women are hired mostly in technical and non-technical positions, resistance to female leaders, whereby men are saying women are not heading the household, so therefore how can they head an organization? And also sexual harassment accepted as a practice, especially when it's from the men's side, and women expected to take the responsibility not to tempt men, and reluctance to hire women where because they go on maternity and care and largely take the responsibility for caregiving, so they need more time off. And lastly is that women didn't apply when we had positions advertised, when companies were advertising positions, women didn't apply. And some of them said it's because of the work-life balance and taking care of more, the large portion of domestic and care work. Some of the interventions that have effectively worked is when a CEO is advocating for change and walking the talk, zero tolerance for sexual harassment, outreach programs to increase interest in STEM, enabling policies such as sexual harassment, return to work policies, family leave, especially paternity leave, and work-life balance, and encouraging men to share domestic and care work. Unconscious bias training, showcasing of women who have broken the barriers, changing job titles, simply a job title like linesman, you change it to lines worker, and that has been really effective. Engaging men's groups and reflecting on toxic masculinity and femininity, and invitation of women to apply for positions, including a simple sentence like, women are encouraged to apply, and integrating of gender sensitization during the orientation and induction program, which is where we catch them when they are young in the company. And some companies are actually engaging spouses of employees. And the most important thing is really building a critical mass of champions, targeting a 30% tipping point.
Thank you, Kumo. I'm sure you also have the opportunity to respond to some of the questions that the participants will raise. Please feel free to drop your questions and contributions in the chat box. Thank you. So, Mr. Godfrey Okumo, can you please give us your thoughts on this question?
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. My name is Godfrey Ochieng Okumu. I'm a program officer at Tostan International in Senegal, and I'm also a trainer at the Tostan Training Center in Chase. And also currently I am the focal person for our programs in Nigeria. with the Nigerian for Women Project and also CSOs and religious leaders networks. So I would like maybe to just reinforce on what Mohammed Bello, Saki Bello already started, because we are part of this project together. One thing that I wanted to reinforce is that that the Nigerian for Women Project, after experiencing the Tostan model in Senegal, I've come to appreciate how important is it to enter communities with perspective that focuses on the positive. And here we talk about that the aspect, for example, when you talk about some of these norms, some of them are deeply rooted based on what Mohamed Seki just said, and also the previous presenters since I joined Meet today. And when you get into communities, especially at community entry point, if you appreciate that these practices are really deeply rooted, it is important on how do you really intervene or how do you really enter the community. So at Tostan, we believe, and that has worked for us, that the entry point is really critical. And it has to start first within what we call the well-being framework. Before Tostan used to do single issue programs or projects, but we realized that that was not really helping in ensuring that people end these practices that make these norms to maintain these norms. So we started to look at holistic way, especially when we enter the community. We work with the community to ensure that they have a vision that will enable them to achieve a community of well-being. So most of the conversations from the onset starts with are focused within the well-being. So everyone looks at the individual behaviors, communities look at their collective behaviors, and they reassess and question some of these practices that they're doing, whether they are really promoting a community of well-being. And these discussions are also done around human rights principles. We look at different human rights principles, what we call a dignity, principle of human dignity, which is normal the human rights, international, derived from the international human rights principles. And the discussions that happens during that time stimulates changes, and communities realize the importance of questioning some of the practices that they have been doing. And it is through this questioning that is where people now look at the pros and cons within themselves without Tostan telling them that this is bad or this is right. And from these conversations that happens over time, they realize that it's important for them to come up with new and important, not new, it's important for them to come up with alternative or new ways of doing things. So, and this happens over time, as I said, and what we realize is that if these come within them, sustaining these actions or sustaining these needs it as their own decision that they make within themselves, rather than an outsider coming in and actually telling them that this is supposed to approach issues, or this is what you're supposed to do. So our role within the Nigerian for Women program is to expose the program staffs and build their capacity in order for them to have that ability to spearhead conversations and dialogues that can allow or support communities to engage freely in order for them to get into this conversation. And this takes time, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Godfrey, for your take from Senegal. I know you all have a lot to say. We haven't been able to dissect everything that you need to say, but this is time for questions and answers. So from the participants, are there questions so that our panelists can respond to those questions? Chat box, comments there, more of comments than questions. Feel free to raise your hand. We'll call upon you to ask your question. Well, while we wait for people to ask their questions, if there are, I know Kumo, you were abruptly interrupted. Can you please round up 1 minute? What you have?
Okay, so I think I had concluded the second part of my input, but mainly that through building a critical mass of champions and building capacity, with stakeholders, and also not only focusing within the company, but also creating networks and spreading the message, advocacy throughout. Our companies have been able to transform not only within the company, but beyond the company, and influence other key stakeholders they interact, external key stakeholders they interact with. But yes, social norms, changing social norms are a challenge. It requires constant effort and at a massive scale. So that's what we have been doing.
Thank you. Mohammed Sarki, you also round up shots.
Thank you. Thank you. The project is very happy to have participated in this conference. At least we have gained additional insights and thoughts on social norms and how this is going to enrich our work. We look forward to more platforms and collaborations like this. Thank you.
Professor, I think we have one hand raised. I think we have time to take one question.
Abakar Imam, can you ask your question?
Thank you, Ma. Yes, thank you to all the presenters. This is actually a very nice and interesting session that I enjoyed from the beginning up till this moment. I would just want to make some comments regarding the some of the points raised by Mohammed Sarki regarding some of the social norms and especially the aspect of women not being expected to call the names of their husbands, their firstborns, or the heads of the family in some instances, and some other key members. So this is not just limited to the calling of the names. You can imagine if the woman is not empowered to do so, how they would be able to speak up for themselves or even take part in any decision making. So it's more or less like a vicious cycle that begins with the inability or the unexpected nature of the society, not expecting them to go ahead to call the names. So if, for example, these are being addressed, which I would say would require a lot. I remember even in my own community in Bauchi, at times our aunties would have to be even like jokingly trying to con them around to call the names of their firstborn or something, but they would never do so. They are so clever at it that there's no way you can lure them into even mistakenly mentioning those names. Not to talk of the husbands, for example, just hear Malam, and that's the end of it. They go to school, you ask them, it's maybe a colleague behind that would mention the surname, but they would never say it. So I think it goes a long way in terms of, empowering women, especially in decision making, especially in issues that have to do with the delays in terms of maternal mortality, the 3Ds and all that. So I think these are very important points that have been raised and need to be probed further. There are a lot of much.
Thank you very much, Abubakar Imam. There's so much to talk about, really. So, Godfrey, 1 minute, can you round up?
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. I think on rounding up, I think one important thing that I also wanted to highlight is it is also important for us to know. I know as researchers, as development workers, most of the time we go in and identify these norms. But how do we also ask ourselves, how do communities identify when the norms are in place? And also, do we also ask questions? Do community know how to differentiate when practices or when values that they really think that are really important when they're leading to the situation where these norms are maintained? Because like what Mohammed Sakia said, and also the previous speaker just mentioned, is that most of the time people do this because they reinforce certain practices. Do we facilitate the opportunity of ensuring dialogues that promote, or dialogues that ensuring there are these values versus practice deliberations? Or do we just organize social mobilization activities with messages we design on our own, or does the community contribute in designing the messages? So those are some of the things that really make sometimes programs ending up leading in a situation where we are inventing the wheel because we don't look at certain questions. So that is just a thought.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, time is really against us. I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank Good Creator Michelia in absentia, Mohammed Sarki Bello, Godfrey Okumo, and Kumo McCarthy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. So we'll navigate to the next session of the presentation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Biaya. Am I good to go? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Please, you have the platform. You can go ahead.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here. And I'm here with my co-author, Smita Das, as well, who's going to help with some of the Q&A. Thanks for having us here. This is a really important discussion, and I'm glad to be part of this. So I'm going to very briefly present on a paper that we've just released. It's called Occupational Sex Segregation in Agriculture. And it's specifically looking at evidence on gender norms and socio-emotional skills in Nigeria. And there are 5 co-authors on this paper. And just to say that, norms are a big part of this study, but a lot of our work I work at the World Bank Africa Gender Innovation Lab. And a lot of the work we do is look at impact evaluation and try to measure the impact of programs that empower women. So this particular study, next slide, please. The motivation behind this is, I think someone brought it up, about occupational choice. So it's been shown that that's a key driver of the gender gap in productivity and earnings. So women tend to sort into specific occupations. They might sort it in business, they might sort into specific sectors, or in farming, maybe they go into cash crops. So this is well known in the literature that this is a major driver of the gap in earnings. And in particular in sub-Saharan Africa, a lot of the research has shown that cultural values and gender norms are going to constrain women's choices about what types of work they're going to pursue. So we take that motivation, and in this paper, we're going to look at how do norms explain the gender segregation that we saw in a government of Nigeria's program. It's called APPEALS. So it's a good acronym, but it's Agro-Processing, Productivity Enhancement and Livelihood Support Program. And the Y bit is Women and Youth Empowerment Program. So this program is basically, it's trying to get people to start agribusinesses, youth and women. And what they're going to do is they're giving them technical support, business training, and an in-kind grant of input to start this business. And it's across 6 Nigerian states. In this paper, we focus on 5 of the states that we have data on. And the key thing with this program is that there are 11 value chains that could have been selected. So program applicants come in and they could have selected. So here I've highlighted cassava, rice, cashew, poultry, aquaculture, cocoa, maize, tomatoes, ginger, dairy, and wheat. So there are 11 choices that you could have made in this program. Next slide, please. So what we do is we take all of the people who come in to apply for this program. So they get interviewed by these 6 states, the coordinators in the 6 states. And out of the 12,000 applicants, we look at what did they choose for their value chain. And what we find is out of the 11 value chains, the majority, so 54%, chose to enter into poultry, the poultry value chain. And in the analysis in the paper, we show that actually, if you look at, while poultry is a profitable value chain, compared to the others, is one of the least profitable out of all the others you could have chosen. And a key finding was that women were more likely to choose poultry than men. So there's a gender gap of 7.2 percentage points in the northern states and 3.6 percentage points in the southern states. So in the north, we're looking at Kano, Kogi, and Kaduna. And in the south, it's Lagos and Cross River that we're analyzing. So paper basically is asking, so when you're offered a choice of 11 value chains, to pick from what factors made 50% choose poultry, and why were women more likely to make this choice than men? Next slide. So as we say, we're here to discuss norms and how do we measure norms in these surveys. So at application stage, we did a small survey, and then later on we did a bigger survey with those who actually got selected. And these are a couple of norms I wanted to highlight on in terms of measurement. So there are 2 that we're looking at: women's work out of the home and the male breadwinner norm. So we first asked them to give them their own personal beliefs. So yes or no, do you agree with this following statement? Women can go out of the home for work. Do you agree with this or do you disagree? The second one is, do you agree that if a woman earns more money than her husband, it's almost certain to cause problems? So the breadwinner status. Then, so that's eliciting their personal belief of what is appropriate for women's work and the breadwinner status. Next, we tried to capture the norm by asking them what they think others in their community believe. And so how we ask it, we say, out of 10 of your neighbors in your community, how many do you think would speak badly of a woman who works out of the home? How many believe that the male is a bad provider if his wife is working for pay? And how many do you think would believe that if a woman earns more money than her husband, it's almost certain to cause problems? So these 3 aspects. So the first one is looking at, like, would there be judgment of the woman if she was working? The second one would be, is there judgment of men if his wife is working? And the third one is sort of capturing the breadwinner, comparing the breadwinner status to the personal belief. Next slide, please. And this is, these are some pretty graphs to show you that, in the literature nowadays, we talk about misperception of norms. So how do people's actual beliefs differ from what they think others in the community believe? So this is the first one where the green bars are showing you, this is aggregated by LGA, local government area. And so in the green bars, you see this is the percentage who actually believe that women should go out of the home for work. So there's a large proportion who actually, everybody said that it's okay for women to go out of the home for work. And the white bars are the community norms. So the fact that the community norm is shifted to the right of the green is people actually think there is more judgment of women than what the people in this survey actually believe. So There may be, you know, in psychology, they call it pluralistic ignorance. This could be an element of that. They don't really know what other people think. Everyone's sort of worried. Or is it that actually this sample is someone who's very more progressive than the rest of their community? Next slide, please. And this is the same with the breadwinner norm. You know, what I showed you before is there was some misperception, but the fact that a lot of this is in the middle is that more people here think the breadwinner status is important. So it is a problem if a woman earns more than a husband. On average, women in the North say 32% of them say that they believe that it is a problem, whereas the community, they think actually 50% of their community would think it's a problem. The next slide, please. So we take these norms, and the key question in this is, we run some analysis to show what factors actually predicts women entering into a non-poultry sector. So we call it crossing over. So the non-poultry sectors we're taking as sort of the more profitable or potentially more profitable sectors that they could have got into. And then we compare it to the characteristics of men and women who are in the poultry sectors. So can we find out what actually, you know, what is it about these women that make them enter into these sectors? So overall, you know, we find what you'd probably expect: women who have more experience and own land are more likely to enter into the non-poultry sectors. So that's pretty classic. You know, if you have land, maybe you're going to grow cassava, maybe you're going to do rice. So this is what would be expected. But very importantly, in the northern states, when we split the analysis, is norm perception was a very important part of explaining women sorting into the poultry sector. So essentially, the more northern women believed that the community is going to judge them for working outside the home, the less likely they're going to go into these potentially more profitable non-poultry sectors. In the South, there was no correlation. So norms do not appear to play a part in the value chain choice, which I think is very classic, completely different ways to analyze the data. So another important point was we looked at socio-emotional skills. So our impact evaluation with this larger impact evaluation with this project is going to be looking at the impact of offering socio-emotional skills training. But this one in particular, what we show is that specific skills such as personal initiative, so how they're able to take initiatives personally themselves, how they can persevere in their creativity, that predicts them being able to enter into these non-poultry sectors if they had no prior work experience. So that basically tells us that if you're going to enter these kind of more profitable sectors, perhaps you need these kind of higher socio-emotional skills to get there. In the South, tertiary education was also important. In terms of socio-emotional skills, those who've actually already entered the sector, so those who have higher exposure to these non-poultry sectors, actually showed a lower average self-efficacy scale. And self-efficacy is an important socio-emotional skill. So our takeaway from that is that women in the North who are registering this lower self-efficacy maybe have had to fight the norms in their communities to operate in these sectors. So we need to unpack that a little bit. But that was an important point. Potentially there is backlash for going out into sectors that are traditionally more male or traditionally higher profit. And the last thing to mention here is that we see this for Northern women, but in terms of men's choice of non-poultry sectors, that's simply driven by men having more years of work experience in their chosen value chain. Nothing on norms play a role in how men choose their occupation. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is important to think through. You know, we've measured norms around working. So it's going to be norms around the acceptability of women's work itself. There are norms about women's mobility, their capacity to interact with men, and or the male breadwinner status. They could all be at play when it comes to women's choice decision of which agriculture value chain to enter, which business sector to enter. So it's not just one or two norms, there's a whole suite of norms that could interact to kind of affect someone's choice. And, you know, we want to be able to highlight this research to show that, you know, this could really drive, although you're saying there's programs for women and youth, this could really drive whether women really profit from this program relative to men, if they're choosing sectors that are going to sort of set them up for less profit. And, you know, the link to the working paper and blog is at the bottom if you're interested to learn more. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Shalashimi.
Thanks. And Smita is here later for the Q&A, so feel free to ask your questions in the chat. Thanks, Biaya.
Sure, thank you. Well, so we'll take the next presentation, Women's Empowerment through the IHP GESI Learning Lab Initiative by Stella Ava, Amelia Ocon, and Kenneth Gino. So you have the platform now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
All right, lovely. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Kenneth Goffner, and I'm a program coordinator with WIHER, and we're very excited to have a moment today to share our experience in women's empowerment through the IHP Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Learning Lab Initiative. Next slide, please. All right, well, firstly, I would like to take a moment to thank USAID. They are the funders of the Integrated Health Program, which operates in 4 states and the FCT in Nigeria. We are currently working in Bauchi, Kebbi, Sokoto, and Ebonyi states, and the Federal Capital Territory. And today I'm joined by my colleagues, Stella Aba and Emilia Ocon from Kebbi and Ebonyi states, respectively. This presentation highlights an IHP initiative which is led by WIHER under Prime Palladium to advance women's empowerment from the supply side, to collaboratively design solutions with service providers to barriers that influence the provision of services to women. IHP has an overall goal to reduce maternal and child morbidity and mortality using 3 main objectives: health system strengthening, increasing access to services, and improving quality of care. WIHER supports IHP to achieve these objectives by integrating gender equality and social inclusion across approaches, and by designing and implementing specific GESI activities that promote women's empowerment, increase men's involvement, meet the needs of adolescents, and support survivors of gender-based violence. Next slide, please. Our name means Women Influencing Health, Education, and Rule of Law, or WIHER for short. Our primary mission is to give a voice to those who are not heard, advance women's empowerment, gender and social inclusion, and youth engagement. For today's presentation, we'll be speaking specifically about one aspect of our work in Nigeria, but we work globally to address issues that prevent women from fully participating in health systems and adopting healthy behaviors. We believe that empowering women is not just about health, it's not just about clinical issues, but it's about the full woman. Up next, my colleague Emilia will now speak to us about challenges in advancing women's empowerment based on our Nigerian context. Thank you.
Next slide, please. It is a known fact that in Nigeria that women have limited agencies, and all through the sessions today is one of the things we've been talking about. If you look at the slide, you'll see some of the issues that are pertaining to women limitations. But for us who are specifically within the health sector, know that there are a lot of limitations that affect them, especially when it has to do with women's ability to engage in economic activities. And that has a direct impact on their health. And when we talk about the direct impact on their health, this ranges into different dimensions, which includes the ability to access antenatal service, because women do not necessarily have the money to pay for the services, so they have to rely on their partners, either their husbands, their boyfriends, but their partners generally, to decide where they get these services, how they get these services. Most of the women, especially rural women, still need to get permission from their husbands to be able to uptake any form of family planning service. Otherwise, there's going to be a serious problem. There's a high rate of teenage pregnancy, which has an attendant effect, including dropout from school, loss of self-esteem and all that. So this for us is not new, and we are very much aware that these are issues that directly not only affect the socioeconomic status of women, but also their health. Next slide, please. So what can we do differently is one of the ways that we brought an idea as a methodology in terms of ensuring that not only do we train healthcare providers to be gender sensitive in offering gender sensitive counseling, but we are also empowering young girls, especially adolescent girls, who come to the health centers to get services. We bridge this gap in terms of agency, independence, and empowerment, and in ensuring that not only do we talk about the issue of empowerment, we are able to assist these young girls get more information about themselves and are able to take key decisions that relate to their health. And some of the things we bring on board are ensuring that healthcare providers are trained to be gender sensitive, especially to be non-judgmental when they are attending to adolescent girls who are pregnant for the first time. We are able to ensure that coordinated gender-based violence prevention and response mechanisms are there. They are also able to do some level of referral services to ensure that when issues of gender-based violence are reported at the primary health care, they don't just offer medical services, but they are able to do follow-up referral for psychosocial services, which is one of the things we normally miss. And for some of the things we've brought on board is a life skills sessions, which we'll also talk about during these sessions, where we create an opportunity for young girls to interact on life skills. So I'll quickly hand over to my colleague Stella Abba to take on the next slide. Please move on to the next slide.
Thank you, Emilia.
Stella, on to you.
We have designed innovative solutions through GESI Learning Lab initiative to promote women's empowerment, focusing in 4 domains of health, which are looking at gender equity and social inclusion, women, children, and adolescent health, as well as responding to gender-based violence. And our aim is to also capacitate the service providers to be able to support these women, claim greater agency towards service utilization, and have improved well-being. And to ensure that there is improved access for these women, we created a learning lab facilities, which is domiciled within the primary health centers across the 5 states we are implementing, including the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Next slide. Through IDEA methodology, providers and clients come together to find local innovative solutions to their problems around social norms, such as lack of getting permission from husbands in order to be able to access healthcare services. Sometimes they need mother-in-law's permission. There is cost of services, and there is even deprivation of sexual reproductive health rights. And through these collaborative efforts, the service providers and the clients come together to design a solution to address this gap, looking at their drivers and the influencers, and also coming up with ideas to overcome these root causes, which is influencing poor antenatal care attendance, delivery, postnatal care services, and healthy birth spacing. And from time to time, each solution is recorded and monitored to ascertain if it is working, recording the results and the progress made. And if it's not working, they explore other means to see what else can they do to make it work. And so if it is working, we try to expand using lessons learned and also reaching out to more women to join the community of practice, and also telling our stories to the larger world for a buy-in as a means to empower more women to improve their agency. Next slide. We have recorded multiple results in our community of practice. Now more clients have direct access to the providers. They feel more warm, they feel welcome, they feel the need for them to open up to the service providers, and some even also assess services as couple as one of the solutions identified and applied by engaging more men to participate in RMNCH services. In Ebonyi State, we have noticed first-time mothers are empowered with education opportunity. In Kebbi, we have community of practice savings established to also tackle the issue of cost of services, emergency referrals, other health issues that might require finance. The women also have established group norms that promote ANC retention, hospital delivery, postnatal care services, including having access to loan for new business startup. These models were explored to ensure that these women have used what is available within their means to address their immediate needs. It is also important to mention that in designing these innovative solutions, we have also identified better ways to allow clients connect with the service providers by using the WhatsApp community of practice, SMS messages sent, and also in-person community of practice. And these models were explored based on the specific context of each area or community, taking into cognizance that some women might not have access to phone, some who have access to phone might not have data, and those who have access to phone, their phone might not also be Android. And so SMS messages are being developed and used to reach these women. And this has created opportunities for them to even ask questions right from their houses, and they receive feedback from the service providers from time to time in order to improve health information. Service providers have demonstrated commitment to gender equity and social inclusion integration in design of facility-based solution using IDEA methodology in promoting women's empowerment, access to ANC, and male involvement in RMNCH services. Next slide, please. We have recorded positive voices from the field. This is one of our community of practice where one of the women is captured, where she shared how she feels very much empowered with increased access to health information and also being able to address some of the financial barriers with access to services. And on this, we would like to say that we'll continue to explore community of practice as a viable method for women's empowerment. Over to you, Emilia, and thank you all.
Still dwelling on the community of practice as a means of intervention. There is a community called Mbaloku in Ebonyi State, which is about 2 hours away from town, very remote. We're able to go into this community. As you can see, the young girls smiling. These are adolescent girls, first-time mothers who used to come to the facility just to for ANC. We were able to recruit them during ANC and have what we call life skills sessions with them twice a month. At the beginning, we were just 8, and over time, we were able to recruit more, and then we were up to about 25. But during these sessions, which are about 2 hours, interactive sessions, discussions, using videos, sometimes we use pictures to discuss with them about life skill, career goals, self-esteem. These young girls, about 8 of them over the span of 8 months, were able to go back to school. For us, this is something we're really able to share and showcase, because they were able to say that one of the things that has happened and made their life changes, that they built their skills, they were able to be confident, they weren't ashamed to go back to school. And as you can all attest to the fact that one of the biggest challenges about an adolescent girl who gets pregnant is her inability to go back to school. Next slide, please. And in Sokoto, Kebbi, and Bauchi State, we have a group of young people who are ambassadors for gender, sexual and reproductive health. And these young people were identified, recruited, and trained and given information on gender and sexual and reproductive health. The intervention methodology here was to do a peer-to-peer, where young people who are strong and have great advocacy skills were able to take the information and go into their community to talk to their peers, and also talk to some key leaders, community leaders, religious leaders in the community. For us, it was an opportunity to, of course, build skills, give out correct information on gender and social inclusion, as well as sexual and reproductive health. But we were building a momentum for young adolescent girls and boys to be able to speak on the issue by themselves. It's a sustainability approach for us, because within the project lifeline, after the project is gone, that information should be able to continue using these young people. And with these young people in these 3 states, we were able to reach over 4,000 other adolescents at the community level. So I'd like to hand over to Ken to wrap up on behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. All right. In closing, thank you so much, everyone, for this opportunity for us to share some of our preliminary results with the GESE Learning Labs. During this fiscal year, in collaboration with service providers and state stakeholders, we will develop and disseminate job aids, posters, and other materials promoting women's empowerment, and working with the service providers, design GESE responsive counseling, care, and access to services in facilities. Additional learning lab facilities will be added in each state, and through the understanding gained in the testing locations through the IDARE methodology, we will share learnings and promising practices across IHP facilities and with the global community. Next slide, please. If there are any questions about anything we've discussed today, please feel free to reach out to me. That's my email right there. We also have more information about what we do as an organization at WIHER on our website. And if you would like to learn more about IHP specifically, please refer to their Facebook page. Thank you, everyone, so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Kenneth and team. Thank you. So we'll take the next presentation by Alta Elisha from Budget Research and Development Policy, Advocacy Center, Kaduna, Nigeria. Thank you. Cha, are you in?
I'm not seeing them. Do we have a colleague or representative for Alta? If you could please type into the chat box, we'll unmute you. Otherwise, we may skip forward. Yeah, sorry, Marilyn?
I was saying he may have dropped off. He was here.
I saw, yeah. Okay, let's go over to Professor Aisha.
Hello, everyone. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, we can hear you. Thank you.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, as the case may be. I beg to remain on the existing protocols. Thank you very much for the discussions that have been holding on so far. The panel discussions and presentations on social norms and women's economic empowerment have set the stage for my discussions. Can we go to the next slide, please, Marilyn? Already the stage has been set, like I mentioned, and social norms both limit and facilitate women's economic empowerment. Like other factors, there are differences in various states due to the diversity of ethnic groups and socioeconomic conditions in Nigeria. And growing evidence suggests that achieving sustained and meaningful empowerment for women requires addressing gender and social norms. And we equips women with the ability to venture into the economic space, succeed and advance economically, the power to make and act on economic decisions generally. We enables women to be able to earn, save, spend, and invest despite their income levels. So understanding the role of norms in women's strategic decisions is critical to developing effective policies to improve women's overall socioeconomic development. We therefore enables changes to law and policies that constrain women's participation. Next slide, please. So the objectives of this study that was conducted in 6 states of Nigeria were to provide a review of policies that facilitate or hinder we at the national and state level, assess the relationship between social norms and we policies, as well as explore how this relationship informs government-led programming to address policy gaps, to examine shifts in social norms, as well as scale up programs across Nigeria. Another objective is to strengthen understanding of the social norms that impact we and how policy can be deployed to enhance women's economic empowerment. Social norms, next slide, please. Social norms serves as barriers and enablers to women's economic empowerment. To be able to assess and examine these objectives, the following methodology was used, where a DEX review, 36 in-depth interviews, and 2 focus group discussions with key stakeholders were held across states and national level. The states were Abia, Borno, Edo, Kaduna, Lagos, and Niger State, representing each of the 6 geopolitical zones. DEX reviews in terms of Gray literature and peer-reviewed publications were conducted to provide background on key concepts and existing body of work on women's economic empowerment and social norms in Nigeria. And the data were analyzed using the building blocks of women's economic empowerment in terms of knowledge and skills, financial services and markets, and the rest. And national and state level policies were identified and analyzed for their relevance and impact on women's economic empowerment, their implementation status and challenges, and the norms they addressed. We also explored the ways in which each state reviewed and adapted national policies for their context. Some of these policies were domesticated, others are yet to be domesticated, depending on the peculiarities of the states assessed. Next slide, please. The conceptual framework, as can be seen on the screen, shows the relationship between social norms and women's economic empowerment, and in between, how social norms enables the economic empowerment of women, or how social norms hinder the economic empowerment of women. In between, you have the policies, whether at national or state level, with the 4 building blocks in terms of knowledge and skills, financial services and markets, legal and social protections, and access to health services. All of this is conditioned by, and also conditions, issues of gender equality, agency, and voice of women to be able to have capacity, to have agency, to have financial inclusion, entrepreneurship, and employment, so that women's economic empowerment women will be effectively empowered and shift certain negative social norms. There are several aspects that will impact on these building blocks in terms of education, in terms of financial literacy, technical and vocational, as well as technology training when it comes to knowledge and skills. All the skills required that will empower a woman, will give her voice, will give her the capacity and ability to make decisions, to stand on her decisions without fear of reprisals and so on. Financial services and markets will enable her through access to technology, to markets, to capital, to credits, as well as financial services, will enable her to have the agency we keep talking about, will enable her to have financial inclusion and the rest, as well as legal and social protections. The discussions so far from yesterday to today have shown that sometimes women have the potential, have the capacity, but they don't have the protections at home, or they don't have the protections in the community. They're afraid of the reference groups, and the legal environment is also not amenable or friendly to them being economically empowered. And this reduces their agency. This reduces their ability to participate in the community. It reduces their ability to be economically empowered and to contribute to the community. And also discussions in the morning have stressed on the issues of access to health services in terms of utilization of health services, in terms of as well as facilities where sometimes women are not allowed or permitted to access health services, utilize health services, maybe because the mother-in-law doesn't feel that it's a good thing, maybe because of the norms and the rest. So this is basically around this framework that the whole study was conducted. Next slide, please. In terms of the situation of women's economic empowerment in selected states in Nigeria, like I mentioned, the selected states are Abia, Borno, Edo, Kaduna, Lagos, and Niger. There are differences in terms of the certain variables that were considered, and this was drawn from the 2018 Democratic and Health Survey, where certain indices like educational attainment, employment, ownership of assets in terms of land and house, ownership of bank account, participation in decision-making, and freedom from gender-based violence were considered, or prevalence of gender-based violence, where women between ages of 15 and 49 in these 60s were examined. Educational attainment is considered the highest level of schooling attended and completed, where percentages reflecting those with some level of primary and secondary or more than secondary were considered. There are differences in terms of these attainments in the various states. For instance, Niger State has the lowest educational attainment, followed by Borno and Kaduna, while the southern states in terms of Edo, Lagos, and Abia have higher percentages in educational attainment. And in terms of Niger State also has the lowest low rate of this educated women in the whole of the North Central Zone. In terms of employment, Lagos State has highest rate of employment, followed by Abia and Edo, then Kaduna and Niger states, while Borno State reported the lowest employment rate of 47.8%. So we can say there is a national decline from the 2018, or from 2013 to 2018. in the overall percentage of employed women paid either in kind or in cash. Can we move on to the next slide, please? The common gender norms related to women's economic empowerment in Nigeria are mainly, which also have been discussed since the beginning of the conference, where we have families across the country considering sons more deserving of care and investment. And here, in terms of prevalence, we have Abia, Lagos, Edo, Borno, Kaduna, and Niger in that order. And however, we are seeing, or we found a gradual shift in this norm, whereby girls are increasingly looking after elderly parents. And as a result, parents are now giving girls more attention in terms of care, in terms of investment, sending them to schools, and so on. And here we can see the building blocks or conditions that are working here in terms of gender equality, knowledge, and skills. Another gender norm that was found to be effective is that husbands control wife and provides permission for her to access healthcare, engage in income-generating activities, access financial services, and move outside the home. And in this, the prevalence per state starts with Edo states, coming down to Borno, Niger, Kaduna, Lagos, and Abia. And the status here is that more women are now earning some income. The literature review showed that women are earning income, and the income is making them to have a say in household decisions, in choices of schools for their children, in decision makings within the household and the rest. And the norms, the building blocks here, gender equality, financial services, and markets, as well as health services. The next norm that we found that is prevalent is that men should be the key decision makers in their families and communities. And this has been coming up from the beginning of the conference, and the prevalence again is in Edo State, followed by Borno, Niger, Kaduna, Lagos, and Abia State. But this is changing with women earning some income, and which enables them to have a say in household decisions. Yesterday, one of our participants mentioned that women are considered as second-class citizens because they do not participate in decision-making. I think this differs across the states, and I don't think they are second-class citizens, but rather it depends on the prevalence of the social norms. And from the interviews we conducted, they have their own ways of ensuring that they do participate, they do participate in household decisions, decision-making, and they do contribute. Women are not expected to control their own assets and properties. This is also another general gender norms, which is more prevalent in Niger, Borno, Lagos, Kaduna, Edo, and Abia in that order, but this is also changing as found in our interviews and literature review, but it's still highly prevalent in Edo and Abia State, where women cannot purchase lands or property or own assets, but through somebody, not directly, even though this is also changing. And women are expected to take care of most domestic and nurturing chores within households. And this is more prevalent in Niger, Kaduna, Borno, Edo, Lagos, and Abia in that order. And with this, we found still persistent in all states. Respondents tell us that this is her responsibility. If she wants to go out, some will say she can. If she wants to do something, earn income, she can, but she has to find a way of taking care of these responsibilities, because these are her responsibilities. And in some circumstances, another gender name, it is appropriate for men to use violence to discipline their wives. And this is more prevalent in Kaduna, Niger, Edo, Borno, and Abia, and Lagos in that order. And it is gradually changing with increased awareness on gender-based violence. And this is also subject to misperception of some religious values and principles, where it is perceived that it is expected that men will use violence to discipline their wives. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. I mentioned the building blocks, and the first building block is knowledge and skills, which comprise of education, training, and financial literacy. Here we have some of the voices from the field, where in terms of education, a respondent in Lagos mentioned that education enables the women to achieve their potential and also enhances their mobility. However, the main societal expectation in Lagos State is that they are responsible for the household and must take care of the children and the cooking. It is non-negotiable. Further validating what I said earlier. In terms of financial literacy, respondents in Kaduna noted that the women there are not literate financially due to lack of access to training, internet services, and the permission of the husband to engage in these activities. And as a result, some of the women, due to this lack of access to training, internet services, and permission of the husband, sometimes they are shortchanged in their financial transactions. Sometimes, as a result of that, they cannot access some of the policies or some of the interventions that are provided by the government or the state. And this also affects them. Next, please. Thank you, Marlene. The second building block is the financial services and markets, which talks about access to technology, markets, capital, credit, financial services, asset control. I've been asked to be quick, so I will just in terms of control of assets in Edo State, the respondent mentioned that they are not allowed by others to own landed properties, even when they want to buy so. I think I've mentioned that, so I'll go to access to markets. Women are more likely than men to become entrepreneurs out of economic necessity. But women typically make different strategic decisions since they are constrained by norms and gender-related factors, household-related demands, the context in which they operate their assets. These lead women to choose low-risk sectors that can be entered with low level of investment. I think the research that showed us that women go for poultry has explained this. Next slide, please. In terms of legal and social protections, which I have explained earlier, that is comprising of cash transfers, pension, maternity leave, child support, anti-discriminatory laws, and so on. Some of the respondents mentioned that we have better safety nets than we have now. But now the extended family ties are breaking down. That sense of community and being our brothers' keepers is being eroded, especially in the urban areas. In the rural areas, it is a bit better. So in essence, what this respondent is saying is that we are neither here or there, before there was the extended family system, and therefore it was serving the purpose. But now extended family system has broken, and there are no safety nets that will provide this protection within the family. Respondents also pointed out that efforts to increase social protection, for example, through social investment programs that are being piloted in some states of the Federation, the Inclusive Pension Act, conditional cash transfers, etc. They noted the need to reduce duplication and increase synergy between CCT programs. This was found. There are lots of programs going on, and some of the MDAs do not even, some will say, we're not aware that the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs is doing this. Another will say, Ministry of Health will say, no, we are doing this. We are supposed to be the ones that are supposed to be taking care of it. So there is need for synergy. There is need for them to work together so that the finances can be channeled to economically empower women. Next slide, please. Access to health services is the fourth building block. And here also, we found that gender norms influence women's ability to make informed choices about their health and bodies, and their willingness to seek health care and the quality of services available to them. Women's ability to work is especially affected by their ability to receive good quality services to promote their sexual and reproductive health and the health of their children. However, in Lagos, one of the community respondents noted that healthcare in Lagos is not very accessible. And we also found that in Abia also, due to a mix of poverty, culture, and comfort. As a result, women visit the traditional herbalists and birth attendants instead of hospitals. They have more faith there because their mothers have used it before. And you know, in some hospitals, the nurses will even tell them to go to the traditional birth attendant. They met the norm in the society, and they feel that the traditional birth attendants are more friendlier. They know them, they call them by name and so on. So they feel they will prefer to go there. Next slide, please. So the interaction between policies and normative influences, where, like I said, social norms enable as well as hinder women's economic empowerment either way. So it could start with gender inequality and women's economic disempowerment, where lack of gender egalitarian laws make women not to have equal access to services, to interventions, and so on. But to be able to have gender equality, agency, women's economic empowerment, there is need to develop adopt gender egalitarian laws, as well as develop policies and programs that will implement these laws and allocate budgets and timely release, as well as staff responsibilities, and that will enable the implementation of policies and programs. And within this, religious, okay, next, go to the next slide, okay. Religious and cultural norms, so as well, all affect. So some of the policies that formulated, which interact with the normative influences, prevented in terms of the egalitarian laws. We have the VAP Act. We have so many policies. VAP Act domesticated in some of the states, while some of the states are still working on it. some policies and programs in terms of that will engender or promote equality and the specific building blocks of women's economic empowerment. For instance, in Kaduna, we have the group antenatal care policy. At the federal level, we have the Women's Fund for Economic Empowerment, Business Development Fund through the Bank of Industry, and the Rural Women and Enterprise Development. Have I passed my time?
You have taken two people's time, but you can quickly round up. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I'll just go to the recommendations. It's very, very important for women's economic empowerment to be effective, for women to be effectively empowered. We understand and address the diverse norms at play in different contexts. We gave examples with the different states, engage stakeholders, family and community. Because if these stakeholders, the family and the community are not engaged, whatever policies, whatever laws are formulated, still the problems will still continue and will not see these policies and these laws being effectively implemented, and women will continuously be disempowered. It is important to make greater use of norms-based insights to increase the impacts of WE programs, as well as provide an enabling environment for the effective implementation of WE policies and programs. And some specific policies that we recommend is strengthening contributory schemes and community outreach service delivery in Kaduna State as recommended by the Honorable Commissioner, as well as the adoption of the Kano State Family Code. On behalf of Midspace and Meredith, Rebecca, and the rest, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Aisha, for your insightful presentation, very detailed and interesting. Thank you so much. So once again, thank you all our presenters, Sri Lakshma, Papini, Kenneth and team, that's Emilia and Stella, Helta in absentia, and Prof again. So thank you so much to everyone. It's time for questions and answers. If you have any questions, you can drop in the chat box. You can also raise your hand now. I'm sure the presenters will be delighted to take your questions. So that it's ready. Can ask any of the presenters from Sri Lakshmi, Kenneth, Emilia, Stella, Aisha. So it looks like the presentations were very, very clear and addressed everybody's concerns. That is a good one.
Okay, do we have Hadiza's colleagues still on the line? Because if we have no questions and answers, we can actually go back to that presentation.
Okay, two persons raised.
Yes, I'm around.
Hi, is that Atta here?
Yeah.
Great. Are you comfortable giving Hadiza's presentation since we have
Yes,
time?
of course.
Wonderful. So I'll just ask Marilyn to pull it up. I saw we had another person with their hand raised. I think it was Chidera, if you want to type your question into the chat box while we go back to that presentation.
Tahir is also asking a question, so drop it in the chat box.
No, I'm not asking a question. When she asks if Rep of Hadiza is close by, that's why I raised my hand.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending where you are. I'm here to share a research conducted by H4CC in Kaduna in collaboration with other people. Though Hadiza cannot join us due to some internet connectivity where she's currently. We're going to look at the funding from the effect of social norms on sexual harassment and corporal punishment in public and private schools in Kaduna, Nigeria, which is a formative research. Next slide, please. These are the objectives of the research. The story is to examine the nature and magnitude of how social normal impact on sexual harassment and corporal punishment in selected schools in Kaduna, Nigeria. It also provides an evidence on the effect of social norms and SRGV and how it impacts on education outcome for boys and girls in Kaduna. To understand the social norms that drive the heightening cases of sexual harassment and corporal punishment in our schools, communities, homes, and its effect on education outcome. Next slide. This is the methodology and scope of the work. Mixed method study used, including secondary analysis of the identified data from publicly available sources, that is multiple cluster indicator survey and violence against children survey as used. Qualitative primary data collection in 30 secondary schools across 5 LGS in Kaduna State. The 30 schools were randomly selected across the 5 LGS. School communities were also examined to understand the underlying social norms impacting on the perpetration of sexual harassment and corporal punishment via focus group discussion and interviews. Next. This is the research question. What do participants understand as being sexual harassment? What role do social norms play in affecting prevention, reporting of the response of sexual harassment? How effective is the use of corporal punishments as a form of discipline in school and a catalyst to learning? Next slide. This is a summary of our findings. Most participants have an idea of what constitutes sexual harassment, though learners mention molestation, bullying, and mention abuse as part of what teachers do, though most school management are in denial of what constitutes corporal punishment, but rather admit to give little tasks such as picking paper and little flogging. Most respondents have no knowledge of what social norms are or what are acceptable or unacceptable social norms within their communities. However, most respondents mention and agree that religious and cultural norms continue to be a barrier to reporting cases. Based on responses by parents and caregivers in the various communities, response showed that the use of corporal punishment is not effective because they shared that, yes, corporal punishment makes children scarce and uncomfortable with the learning and call for educators to be more patient and lenient. Next. So implication of the state are our recommendation based on the findings from the research. Government and CSO to intensify research and program centers on social norms, scale up sensitization program on sexual harassment and mainstream it into all education intervention, ensure effective implementation of the Safe School Initiative program, ensure the reviewing and creation of effective guidance and counseling units in schools, training of teachers on alternatives to corporal punishment, scale up the formation of SGBV response team in school and school communities, then effective and all-inclusion community stakeholders engagement to shift social norms promoting corporal punishment and creating barrier to reporting sexual harassment. Next. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. So we can switch over to the questions and answer sessions. Chidera, you were supposed to drop your question in the chat box. You didn't do that. You still want to ask the question?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My question was directed at the presentation on women empowerment through IHP. One of the presenters mentioned that there
Can
were
you
programs.
please speak up? Can
Okay.
barely hear
My
you.
question is directed to the presenters for the women empowerment through IHP. One of the presenters mentioned that there were programs going on in the community level for the adolescent girls in the community. So I wanted to find out how the response in the community was, and what were their challenges when the program started.
So that should be probably for either Emilia or Stella.
It's me, Emilia. The first time mothers program was in Ebonyi. So we did the recruitment through the facility. Because the IHP project is a facility-based project mostly. The community piece of it is carried out by Breakthrough Action in Ebonyi State. So we did the recruitment using the facility. The adolescent girls already come to the facility to access ANC service. So we were just talking to them using that means already, not necessarily going back to the community to assess them. So we did all that using the health workers at the facility level, which is another entry point that we tried, and it did work. But one of the challenge I would say is for follow-up. It's a bit difficult to follow up adolescent girls at rural areas because most of them do not have functional phones, and they use their partner's phone number on the register, on the ANC register when they come. And sometimes if their partners do not like the programs, like we also observed, they don't give them permission to attend such programs. So that's one of the core challenges that we faced.
Okay, thank you so much for that response. Any other questions? Well, I think I have a question. I wanted to know, it's good that efforts are directed towards empowering women, as this may be. Is it really that is it more challenging to address the social norms, the deeply rooted social norms issues that keep women where they are? Or are the efforts at empowering women matching the efforts also at changing social norms that keep women where they are? I think any of the presenters can actually respond to this.
Hi, this is Emilia again, because there's silence and I felt we're running out of time. Can I make an attempt?
Yes, please, 1 minute, thank you.
In the real sense, I would say there's no right or wrong answer to your question. In years back, we have gone back and forth with the mechanism of either empowering women to ensure that they do have the right information and probably resource to be able to be independent and make decisions for themselves. But we have also seen that there's a lot of challenge that the woman goes back to face in terms of breaking social norms that are hinged on culture and, society, and of course, tradition. So it's about the balancing, I would say now, that when we're empowering women, for instance, I'll still use IHP as an example. While we're doing empowerment of women at the facility level, we already have a very strong social norms stakeholders program that we do. We have a values clarification program that we do for our state level and local level stakeholders. So we are clarifying norms. We are talking about societal norms, traditional norms that hinged women and hold women down at that level to try to ensure that community stakeholders, especially community leaders, understand why, for instance, the woman doesn't necessarily need a man's permission to uptake family planning. The woman doesn't necessarily need a man's permission to be able to say, I used to go to this primary health care to access ANC. It's closer to home. I don't need to go to the one my husband says is cheaper because there are so and so issues assigned to it. We then back it up with the empowerment of women at the facility level. So for me, I think it's about balancing. You can't choose one over the other. You really have to do both at this point to be able to make any reasonable.
Okay, thank you so much, Emilia. It looks like we're out of time. So thank you, our presenters, each and every one of you, for your rich presentations. I'm sure many people will reach out to you for one collaboration or relationship or the other. Thank you so much. So at this point in time, I will hand you over to Hasbiela Ahmed, Program Manager or Program Officer in Space Consulting. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning. Where you're dialing in from. So we're just going to delve more into how to get involved in upcoming opportunities with the Learning Collaborative. Next slide, please. So you can sign up with the resources, get information on future events. Hello, can everyone hear me?
You are breaking, Hasbi.
Sorry, Hasbi. Okay, I think we are losing her, so I'm just gonna jump in here. So if you would like to access information about the Nigeria Learning Collaborative, we do have a website along with the Global Social Norms Learning Collaborative at this link, and I'll just ask Marilyn to put it in the chat box. A lot of the opportunities that we're going to talk about in the next slides will be mailing the list about. So if you get on our mailing list, you'll hear about mentorship, working groups, and other things I'm going to talk about next. And we also have information about upcoming events and past event recordings on the website. So we had a series of trainings on social norms, really, really rich topics there. So you can actually access those on the website and watch the trainings that we have there and access the slides. We also have on that website a map of social norms research and interventions. Right now we have 10 projects listed for Nigeria, and we are open to your submissions about your social norms work. So there's a form on the page there where you can submit your work, and you can also click through the map, see the Nigeria projects, and see projects from other countries. And it's very cool because they actually link some of the data collection tools and resources in the submissions for each of the projects listed all over the world. Next slide. So a big upcoming opportunity that we have for the Social Norms Learning Collaborative in Nigeria is our second round application for mentorship will be launching in the next couple months. So this is a process by which Organizations in Nigeria can be paired with social norms experts who will help build their capacity or just troubleshoot some things that may be going on in your research or programs in regards to incorporating social norms. So they can help intervene with incorporating social norms at all stages of the program, you know, from conceptualizing theory of change, designing the next phase of work, working on M&E tools, those kinds of things. So we'll be sending out the application for mentorship in the next couple months through the mailing list. Next slide. And we actually have some colleagues who are on the call involved in this conference that received mentorship from our first round, and I think they can attest to its helpfulness in their work. So another thing that we have as part of the community of practice is we have technical working groups, and they originally were formed around technical topics, but now we're really forming them around our current projects that we have going on. So the two projects we have going on now are a scoping literature review on social norms in Nigeria and a landscape analysis of social norms work being done in Nigeria as well. Sorry, Betsy, go ahead and chime in here.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Meredith. Yeah, no, I just want to give a quick plug for the working groups. I am working closely with the working groups, and I'd like to really warmly welcome and encourage any and all of you who are interested to join us. You know, I've been really impressed with all the presenters, panelists, and moderators today and yesterday, and I really enjoyed hearing about everyone's work. But I learned a ton, and I realized there's a depth of experience and expertise that we would love to have more involved in the working group. So I encourage you to join us on our next scheduled group call, which is to be on December 2nd at 2 p.m. And please just email Hasbi or myself if you'd like to join us and help us bring our group projects to fruition. Thank you. Back to you, Meredith.
Thanks, Betsy. Next slide. The next thing I'd really like to put a plug in for is that we're going to be forming an advisory board for the Nigeria Social Norms Learning Collaborative. So what this would entail would be joining an advisory board meeting every other month and really putting your input into shaping the direction of the community of practice. So you know, looking out for what the needs are of the community of practice members so that the organizers can decide on future events, future training opportunities, and really providing guidance on what would be useful for our members. It's also a nice way to kind of have a firsthand look at the upcoming training and funding opportunities that there are, such as, you know, through mentorship or some funding that we have available to support some work on the working groups. You'll be the first to hear about that. And so we'll be putting out this call through the mailing list again, or you can email me if you're interested in joining that advisory board. We would really appreciate more involvement from you all. And next slide. You can also contact Hasbiala as well. Many of you have her email. It's also listed here. And then finally, just to put another plug in for the survey that we put into the chat box, we're going to use the survey to decide on what our upcoming events will be. So we have some questions in there about what topics you'd like to see at the next training, or what you think the community of practice should prioritize. So we'll really take those to heart as well. So now I'm going to turn over to Rebecca Lundgren, who will reflect on the first day and give us some closing remarks. Reflect on the second day, sorry. Thanks so much.
Hey, everybody. I have the job to bookend the conference that Mikhail started yesterday. So I'd like to start with thanking everyone for your very thoughtful participation and presentations. I was very impressed and excited by the level of sophistication today. You know, when a lot of our abstracts didn't explicitly mention norms, but I thought in the discussions today and yesterday, we were really talking about, you know, articulating well how to frame a norm, how to measure it, and what implementing norm shifting projects look like. I did note a couple of common themes that I thought were very interesting. You know, first, understanding and addressing norms, how it's a very holistic activity that takes, you have to think about all the different levels that came out from all of your discussion presentations, including thinking back yesterday about the discussion about engaging faith leaders. I also, it was very evident also how norms are so interconnected and interlocking across different outcomes. We talked about a wide range of outcomes: violence, family planning, women's economic empowerment, gender equity, and you can see how the norms for one sort of influence the other, and how really we can advance more quickly by thinking in a broader multisectoral way. I thought it was also very interesting to see how violence is used as a sanction in a lot of the programs and research results you were talking about. Finally, I think maybe most exciting for me was a discussion about implementation and how implementation needs to be led by the community, developed by the community, for the community, and the sort of the complicated nuances of thinking about norms and norm shifting. So I think that was a really great conversation that we started to get into, and I hope we can have more conversations on those topics. And just finally, to encourage you all to engage with the Nigeria Learning Collaborative, and remember that it's also a way to connect with other social norms practitioners in other regions. So there are 5 social norms learning collaboratives. There's one in South Asia, one in East Africa, one in Francophone West Africa, and then a global community of folks who work across different regions. You can sign up for any of those on the Align platform. And we really hoping we can foster those connections. I know at least yesterday, there were a lot of members from the East Africa Learning Collaborative in the conference. And with that, I think all I have to do is remind you to take the survey, and thank you all for participating. It's been I've really learned a lot. It's been a very invigorating morning for me. So thank you all, and I think I have the power to declare the conference closed.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, ma, well done. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Everyone.
Good
Great work, everybody.
presentation, Tahir.
Thank you.
So when are we
Well
meeting?
done.